everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back here for week 4 on the RHAP Rewind here in the month of January. And we are back for the 4th chapter of our Kid Nation rewatch. And I'm so excited to be back here today. We've got another great episode. We're going to be talking through episodes 8, 9, and 10 of 2007's Kid Nation. And let me bring back, here is my co-host, and I will never give him a vote of no confidence. Here is the great Phil Thompson. Phil, how are you?
What's going on, Rob? I'm doing all right. You know, this week we got one great, I would say good transition of power. And then on Kid Nation, you know, we got one that might have, you know, gone awry, but I'm excited to talk about it with you. Yes.
Political scientists, I think that pull up a chair, because there's a lot to watch here in what goes on in Bonanza City that we are holding up a mirror to our society. And we could see things, little microcosms of the things that happen in our real world. We will do that once again here today as we talk through Kid Nation. And boy, how lucky are we today that we have back with us a man who is a reality TV encyclopedia. Before he was a man whore, he was a young man watching Kid Nation. It's Mike Bloom.
It's the natural transition. So happy to be here, and I'm even happier that I did not interrupt you, Rob, because I know if I did, we would have to start all the way over from coming to you live.
Coming to you live. Let's do it. Take it from one. All right.
No
Mike
interruptions
Bloom.
This entire podcast.
I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. We're so lucky. We have Mike Bloom here, of course, that Mike is coming off of a week where on Tuesday night we got back together to talk about the best juror speeches of all time. Mike Bloom, myself, and the Amazing Grace leader. Of course,
yes.
And we went through all of the best juror speeches of all time on the latest Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST. Check that out at robisawebsite.com.
And I mean, I think that some of these council members, when up for re-election, could have used some lessons from Sue Hawk, maybe even some Corinne thrown in there, because when you're thrown for a loop with a blind side, they all sort of stumbled as a result and got overthrown. But I'm happy to pull up a chair, and I don't know if I'll sit in it grouchily like someone else that was attending the inauguration. But is Taylor sort of like the Bernie of Bonanza, of just sort of like sitting there with her arms crossed,
Here's
like deal with it?
Right. Well, that we've seen every single Bernie Sanders meme. Put him at the town council meeting as the 5th leader. Put him up there.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, and I think you know, I think his district would be especially interesting in many different ways. I think the council meetings would be incredibly interesting. I can't wait. No. It's not the council meeting. It's when it's DK, Greg, and Blaine setting up the chair in the town center, right? When they're doing the compliments, put Bernie there. That's where he needs to be.
Yeah. Now, Bernie would be great in Kid Nation, that he would be talking about how, you know, the, what's the top class?
Yeah, he'd totally just be mixing up all the classes.
Yeah. The laborers are underpaid. With laborers, they're only getting 1 buffalo nickel. That's not enough. It's not a living wage in Bonanza City.
Yeah, I think he would be the one to sort of stage a coup on the show, right? Be like, Jonathan, we don't care about the challenge. We're all going to be equal here.
Give everybody 25 cents. That's it.
And he's dressed for the part, right? Considering how cold it is with Bonanza City. He's got those warm ass mittens. Like, he's just going to be walking around the entire time, just sort of huddled up with his mail under his sleeve. Where are the ponies? I got a letter to send.
You know, I think that's what, if they ever were going to do a Kid Nation season 2, just have Bernie on as like one of the tribe leaders. Just bring him on. No one would care. It'd be great.
Yeah. The upper class is making too much money. Okay.
I am asking you again for your buffalo nickels.
All right. Mike, could you give us your Kid Nation origin story?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because I did watch it live in the fall of 2007. For the most part, I actually ended up sort of bailing on this season actually around this time. I do remember watching the talent show, but that sort of is the last memory I have in the moment of watching Kid Nation, because especially when I was sort of building that aforementioned reality TV encyclopedia back in the day, I sort of forbade myself from watching reality shows that were not competition based. Essentially, I told myself, like, if someone's not going home every episode, I don't want to see it. And so as a result, with Kid Nation, after a while, I'm like, well, there's some kids that are going home, but it's not really by any sort of elimination process. Let me sort of bail on this. I more so had a lot of other stuff to check out, like the shows that I saw in the lower third being advertised in my copy of this between Survivor China and The Amazing Race. You know, I was not starving for content. But I always do remember watching at least that first half just because of how wild it was. You know, I was 18 years old at the time that Kid Nation aired, so I was definitely on the older side. But, you know, you're old enough from a proximity basis that you certainly put yourself in that mindset of like, if I was in that situation, what would I do? Because I'm definitely a homebody. I'm an indoor kid, as it were. So like you tell me to go get water, go kill a chicken, and I'm just going to look at you cockeyed. So I can only imagine how I would have done back then and putting myself in the place of these poor besieged children.
Mike, you didn't want to see the fall of Randy? That wasn't something that was really enticing to you at the time, or?
Well, I guess I left with Randy. I'm like, oh, if Randy's gone, then I'm gone. That's it. I'm like, I did what Taylor wouldn't do.
All right, well, let's talk through episode number 8 of Kid Nation, and it is called Starved for Entertainment. It's all about the lack of entertainment options in Bonanza City. Boy, Phil, we open up these episodes, and like these themes are so heavy-handed. Like all of a sudden, like talk about the 24-hour news cycle in Bonanza City. Like something is not even on the radar, and then there's one subject. Every single kid in the whole town is talking about this one thing.
It's insane. They're like not beating around the bush at all. Like but within the first minute, all the kids are like, "Oh, I'm so bored."
They're all lying down doing. Yeah. It looked like they were doing like that sleepover game where you put your head on someone's stomach and everyone goes like, "Huh, ha, ha," and everyone tries to laugh. Like it felt like an odd group therapy exercise.
I have not played that game, Mike.
Well, listen, we're going to get into bad theater games later with the communication game. I have played many a time. Speaking of entertainment, theater and the arts, I'm certainly not starved for that over the course of my life.
So here comes Sophia. And Phil, this is like a thing Sophia does. Like, I'm bored. Let me invent something that's going to be just to get everybody doing what I want for my amusement. She makes everybody lay down in the street. Mike, was this inspired by the movie The Program?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, Sophia is very culturally literate. And so she really said like, all right, let's get everybody out here to homage this movie, if only just for me. I mean, it's less so about that for me. It was more so about Jared's history lesson. Jared, who, God, I love Jared so much.
I love him.
He's like a mini Fraser Crane in that like he is so like highbrow, but so awkwardly goofy that I like just put a bald cap on him and essentially you have a mini Kelsey Grammer.
Now we're at the phase where Jared is no longer, happy. Ever since the, Divad debacle, now he's kind of jaded. He's old and bitter and jaded.
Jared.
He's like, want to know what one of the causes of the Dark Ages?
Here, I got the clip.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
I'd like to know one of the causes of the Dark Ages. They ditched art and entertainment.
Now, Mike, is that factually correct?
I mean, if we're going to the Family Feud board, I definitively don't think it's number one. I'm pretty sure the Black Plague was number one. And I think, number 2, the Crusades might have had something to do with it as well. Like, I think it's definitely...
But also they ditched arts and entertainment.
Yeah, I don't think it's on the podium. I'll admit to that. I think a lack of arts education is sort of off to the sides there.
Yeah, I think that was probably a cause of the plague. It wasn't really a direct, they lost the arts and then everything went to shit.
I wonder if 2020, 2021, Jared is like, we've lost all of our arts, that all the movie theaters are closed. We've lost who we are as people.
I'm just imagine what the 1500s said. They're like, oh, we can't go to the theater. I'll lick this rat. That's what I'll do. This is my entertainment now. Oh, I'm sick.
Like, the whole episode kind of hinges on the fact that Bonanza totally fell and like they collapsed because they lost arts and entertainment. Like, I love that they keep coming up with new ways that like Bonanza City fell, like every single episode.
Yeah, this place sounds like an utter catastrophe. Maybe this place was run by a child at the time and they just didn't mention it because it seems like every single time it was like, don't do this. Bonanza City did this. Bonanza City did something wrong, but did more wrong than it did right. The only thing it did right was being able to describe what it did wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny that this book is sort of like just the 13-part sort of autopsy of Bonanza City. All the
why
things
Bonanza City lost.
Chapter 8, we did not have enough arts in our town. That's part of the reason our society crumbled. Very sad.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that the council decides, because I think, what does Zach say? Like, well, it's either going to be a talent show or a play. And we've seen Big Brother 16. We are very glad that it wasn't a play, because I cannot imagine these people trying to mock the others.
Yeah, they're going to figure out something to do, and we're going to go with talent show. And so I know from the second we hear about the talent show, this is going to be a disaster.
Has there ever been a talent show that totally just went off without a hitch, though? Like, everyone was just totally phenomenal?
I don't know. I mean, Wet Hot American Summer, everyone, except they didn't like the Day by Day performance. It was too Jesus-y to them, but it blew the roof off of it by the end.
Yeah. Mike, I have to imagine you have appeared in your fair share of talent shows.
Oh, certainly.
Yes. Can you share with us some of your acts that you've done in the talent show?
It's been a lot of... I've done stand up. I guess to quote Jared, I'm not the worst performer. I'll say that much about my own performative style. I've sang before. My 7th grade group of friends and I formed a short-lived band where we performed a song about rocks. That was essentially us just smashing on it. No, unfortunately not. No hauling rocks there, but it sounded like we were grinding rocks, because all we were doing was just mashing on instruments we had no idea how to play. So I never born any success out of talent shows, but I also feel like when you're going to a talent show for this age group, you're not looking for quality. It's more so about quantity. How many kids sign up, and sort of what's the diversity of acts that are being performed.
Phil, you're a talented guy. Have you appeared in any talent shows?
Yeah, unfortunately, I also did stand up in my high school talent show, and I don't think it went great. I think Sophia really showed me up here in the episode. But I just think about how these kids are so bored, and DK is like causing an uprising. He's like, we're so bored, we need something to do. But do you really think that like talent show is like the thing that really speaks out to you? Well, like when you're sitting around like, oh, I'm so bored, what should I do? Oh, let's go to a talent show. Let's go to, like, that's never like the number one thing, I feel.
Yeah. You know what they maybe could have done? Could we have done like Bonanza the movie? Could they have provided them with like antiquated video cameras and are like, you guys are going to make a movie this episode, and then you're going to screen it that night in front of the entire town?
It would have been like Threat Level Midnight or something like that. Would have been actually phenomenal if they just like made their own movie and they had to like in-house edit it and like do everything themselves. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, like you see these kids haul water. Wait till you see them in front of Final Cut Pro. That's when they really fall apart.
Yeah, I think that probably that would be too much of a break from like the Bonanza City motif of to go out and shoot maybe the original play might have been the way to go.
Yeah, I would have loved to see that. I wonder what they would have done though. Maybe some Shakespeare. That would have been good.
I think you know what? I think Jared's definitively the writer. Maybe they would do like sort of like a Bonanza City like pageant almost about like the history of Bonanza City that was made up of like, okay, this is when they failed to clean up. This is when they failed to get the food. This is when they failed to have entertainment. And then you bring in as many actors as you want to and then perform for the rest of the kids. And actually, I'm coming around on this idea. Maybe, though, I guess, this at least allows the kids to be themselves however they want to, whether that's stand-up, singing, etc.
I also think that the producers, somebody had the idea of like, oh, whoever wins the talent show will get the gold star this week. Oh, that's so good. Oh, okay. And ultimately, they tried to build this talent show around who is going to win the gold star.
Right, yeah. but that's not like initially the thing, right? Because doesn't Devon make another play for the second week in a row? Like, I didn't participate in. Oh no, she did sing. Right, she sang, but I think it was more so about like, hey, just a reminder, like I'll do this if I have to get the gold star, but I'm not really into the idea of singing.
Yeah, anything for a gold star from Devon.
Devon should have made potatoes for the talent show. I think that would have they would have been like, all right, these potatoes are pretty good. Like, we'll give you the gold star.
You know what she should have done? She should have made a ventriloquist dummy out of potatoes, like Mr. Potato Head, and just like did a whole act with that. I think kids would have been rolling on the floor.
Would have been great. Okay. So everybody is going to be working on their acts. We hear Kennedy is a new kid in town. Phil, is this the first time we've seen Kennedy?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think we've ever seen Kennedy before. And, it's funny, again, how they will just bring in a brand new character and it's like, oh, wait, were you even in the show? And you have to look back through the other episodes like, oh, yeah, she was in the background.
The Nikki and Palos of Kid Nation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But luckily this one fares a lot better with the audience. Kennedy is sort of like the Kennedy sounds like the Laurel S. Boston accent, right? Like she's young, she's got personality, maybe she's Catholic, like she's got those moves, she's got that charisma that apparently is just so electric. Those funky dance moves just send everyone into hysterics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how they started it out. It feels like, Kennedy is a weird character that like doesn't fully translate on TV. Like you definitely see why they didn't really include her in the first like 6 or 7 episodes, because it's like, I don't really know what exactly to do with you, but I guess, you dance weird.
Yeah. Jared is going to work on Shakespeare. Phil, is Jared a Shakespeare kid, or do you think that somebody put him up to this?
I think Jared is a Shakespeare kid. I don't remember. He had a Shakespeare quote earlier. He also, when they opened up the shops, I remember he picked out like Hamlet or something like that. And he was like, I love Hamlet.
I was going to ask like where, because obviously they got like the holy books a few episodes ago. Look, I love me some Shakespeare. I don't think it qualifies as a holy book, but somehow he has like the complete works of Shakespeare to peruse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he's going to be working on that. And then Olivia is going to be doing some stand-up. And Sophia tells us that, is Olivia funny? I don't know.
I don't really, Olivia's also, I never really thought that she was funny, but we're going to see, she does a pretty good job for, like a 12-year-old. That was pretty good stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel for Olivia here, because I have certainly had people that are like, oh, like you do comedy stuff, tell me a joke. And that is sort of what I feel like Sophia did, right? Of like, it's almost like, oh, you're a singer, sing something right now. Like, hey, dance monkey, come on, get on your platform and perform for me right now in the middle of civilian environment. It felt odd for, Sophia to be like, all right, Olivia, do some comedy. No, not funny. She was sort of like the Simon Cowell of the group, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they should have had judges during the talent show.
That would have been
was the council sort of, I mean, they were the ones that gave the gold star, so I guess they were the judges.
I guess they were the judges, but they didn't like rate each act.
Yeah, I would have loved like a Randy Jackson speech from like Greg after every single performance or something like that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been watching Randy Jackson on Name That Tune.
All right, so do you give the thumbs up to name the Jane Krakowski Name That Tune?
I do. I loved it. Did you watch it?
No, so I've checked out all the other Fox programming. I've watched Masked Singer, Masked Dancer, and I Can See Your Voice.
So
which I really actually enjoyed I Can See Your Voice. Yeah. So I think Name That Tune might have to complete the quadrology of musical-based
It's really
shows.
fun. I love Name That Tune.
It's just weird to see Randy Jackson, who was once, a total like television titan, and now he just is kind of like a song and dance man, just playing the song, and that's basically it.
He's very skinny, and he also is like trying to like. I don't think Jane Krakowski really includes him in the conversation. He just sort of like butts in sometimes, like, hold on, Randy. No,
Did he still have like the yo dog like terminology, or has he moved on?
I didn't hear a lot of dogs. I think he might have dropped that.
Or it's a bit pitchy.
Yeah. But no, it's good. The whole band. It's a fun show, Mike.
Do you think that Randy Jackson, like, do you think he would have won the talent show if little Randy Jackson was performing in?
Well, he's at the piano on this show. He's like, he's the guy who's like the band leader.
Right, but do you think he would have beaten Kennedy's Funky Dancing?
Yes.
That's the main question.
Yes. So that he was in Journey, right? I mean, he's a talented guy.
I don't know.
But that funky dancing.
But he could play music. I mean, he could play better than Kelsey on the piano.
I think Kennedy would have mopped the floor with Randy Jackson. I'm sorry.
You got to know your crowd. These kids don't care about Journey. They care about funky dancing and bird masks. Those Kennedy really hit the big two.
The big two. All right. So we also are introduced to Savannah, is a girl who is missing home. Phil, every week we have to have like some kid that's like missing home. Some kid is like on the block of that they're going to go home and miss their parents.
Yeah, it's always a constant battle between, like, there's some kid who's always crying, and all the other kids are like, why are you crying? Like, yeah, we all miss our family. And then the next week, that same kid who was, like, critiquing the other kid is, like, now crying, like, oh, I miss my family. I mean, it's pretty hard. I'm not going to debate, but also, like, we're 3/4 of the way through. Like, come on, kids.
Yeah, there's 10 days left. Stop it.
Come on. Home stretch. Let's go.
I didn't get on any kid yet about, I want to go home. But you know what? It's day 30. It's day 30.
Listen, when you're
going home in 10 days.
You make an authentic Kentucky dinner, it makes you miss home.
You can finish this. You can finish this. Like, you can make it this far. Okay. So we're gonna have a lot of Greg and Blaine in this episode. A ton of Greg and Blaine coming up here in episodes 8, 9, and 10. And so Greg, Mike, I would love to get your take on Greg. Greg is basically like that he is like the Incredible Hulk and then also like Bruce Banner. He's like sometimes he's like a very like nice, like conscientious guy. And then the other half of the time he is like the exact opposite, raging lunatic.
Greg is such a little asshole. He really is. Like, he tries to like, slough it off in the final episode of this block, right? Of being like, hey, it's tough love. And that's what I think really unlocked it for me of like, this is a farm kid. He probably has heard that mentality as well of like, oh, I have to get up at the crack of dawn and do this because it's tough love. But like, that does not work when you apply it to other kids. And so, yeah, Greg's commandments are so strange to your point, Rob. Like, he will support the younger kids specifically. But I guess if you reach a certain age limit, he's like, F off. I hate you. You should be able to do this. It's an odd, like, I don't know, flip of a switch when you get to a certain height or a certain number for Greg, where after that, he just does not respect you whatsoever.
Yeah. Phil, it's almost like if you're being lazy and not working, Greg is going to come at you. But then once you start crying, then he's going to bring you back up.
Yeah, I think that's what's so fascinating about Greg. And, because Greg is obviously like, the perfect like school bully archetype. And I think a lot of that is just because like, he's like really tough on the outside. He's going to push you down and he's going to call you names and swear at you. But you see, there's such like a soft and like, emotional interior that's just ready to like burst out. It's like if you poke him, he'll start crying because like it seems like he doesn't have anyone to actually talk to about the stuff he's dealing with. It feels
only
like
Blaine. Only Blaine.
I mean, well, we get to see a little bit of goofy Greg in this first episode, right? When he and Greg are doing their own take on Shakespeare. I think I'm not entirely sure what they're doing. Their own version of Romeo and Juliet, involving peeing in the corner.
Yeah, they're both wearing dresses. I don't know. They think they're like Pacino and De Niro or something like that with their performances. I mean,
listen, it was super progressive though, right? It was,
I'm not sure.
And they really went off script at a certain point with like, why should I love you? Because I'm so sexy. Better than the Bard, in my opinion. I think Jared's ripping up his pages now being like, my God, why didn't I go to them? These are the works of the great classical artists.
Well, Mike, I think this was a bit of a throwback because correct me if I'm wrong, but in the original Shakespeare performances, like weren't all of the roles played by men?
Yes, but not all the roles were played by men in dresses.
And also, the men in dresses were never, exclusively played for the joke, which is what I think Greg and Blaine are ultimately doing here.
Yeah. Also, where did they get the dresses? I'm very intrigued about that because they seem like those like saloon girl dresses that like if you go to like the old West town, you like take pictures dressed up with your friends. I don't know if the producers provided that, if they won that in some sort of challenge or something, but I'm very intrigued as to what bargain bin they got these out of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure the producers, as soon as they said they want to wear dresses, the producers are going to like, oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah.
But then there's even like a little bit of a mashup of stories where like, I remember when they were rehearsing, like Greg lets down his like Rapunzel-like hair for Romeo to climb the tower. And I'm like, I don't remember. Is this a footnote in Romeo and Juliet? Because I do not remember this part specifically.
You think that Greg and Blaine were probably you're surprised that they didn't stick to the actual word as much as they should have.
Yeah, I do think that Shakespeare's words are considered poetic, effervescent, eternal for a reason. If you deviate from the Bard, you invoke hundreds of years of literary history that brought us out of those dark ages.
Yes.
This was the entertainment that got us away from licking rats, as Jared would say. Honor it a bit, boys, okay? Come on.
All right.
Listen, they're calling people lazy. They're being lazy for not sticking to their Shakespeare.
Yeah, so Greg and Blaine, they have a problem, Phil, with here come two new characters out of nowhere. Have we seen Natasha and Meagle?
Meagle.
Meagle?
Yeah, but Meagle, no, I'm pretty sure Meagle, there's one scene where her sister has a ring that she really likes, and so she ends up choking her and taking the ring and going off into a cave.
Yes. Yes.
No, they were only kind of seen as part of like Taylor's clique or her alliance or whatever, but that's basically all we get from them. You know, the first time we actually meet Natasha, you know, she's like, oh, I miss my bed. I miss my food. I miss everything. And I know you love those type of people, Rob, who are just, you know, complaining about how much they miss their food and everything like that. But, you know, that's kind of, we see how much Taylor's influence kind of like spread onto them, or maybe that's just who they are. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I do love, like, this is it's 2007 when you talked about George Bush last time. This time they get the nickname of Paris and Nicole.
Okay. Phil, do you know Paris and Nicole?
Yeah, that's kind of before my time. I mean, I know who they are and I know of them, but definitely like the cultural context of that was a little bit lost on me, I'd say, unfortunately.
Well, not only you, Alex also doesn't know what that means, which I gotta say, I think Alex might be my favorite tertiary character of the whole thing. Like, this guy doesn't have anything major to do, but like, he's gonna stand there with his cool ass shades and just sort of like make commentary, little Alex, about everything. He's always my favorite go-to kid.
He's good. I didn't know he was so close with Nathan. We'll find that out in the next episode.
Yeah, we kind of like a lot of the friendships don't mean anything until they suddenly do, and then all of a sudden they're gone again.
A lot of times, like, we have one kid, and it's like, you know, like who their best friend is. That's sort of like that. A lot of them are sort of paired up. Of like, there's this one. It's like, okay, I know who that is because that's that one's best friend. A lot.
There's like a weird buddy Bonanza buddy system going on, right? Of like, okay, yeah. Oh no, imagine if he was the other council member next to Bernie.
All right, it's time for the talent show.
Doing it in the buddy system.
Yeah.
You're gonna be reading excerpts from the Boston Rob rule book.
So Blaine and Greg, they have a problem with Miguel and Natasha. They tell Anjay they're going to throw the challenge to make to be the laborer. So Miguel and Natasha are going to work, and Phil, Anjay does not like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, he obviously doesn't want to be a laborer, but also Anjay knows that he kind of has no authority over what Greg and Blaine are going to do. And I think that's the most frustrating part about it to him, because he knows he wants to stop it, but Greg and Blaine are going to do Greg and Blaine. And so if they want to throw the challenge, they're going to throw the challenge. And that's basically it.
Yeah. At one point, Anjay's trying to get the team fired up, like, are we going to win or not? And they're like, no.
Yeah. I think my favorite, though, is I think it's the next episode when he's like, guys, the Titanic was nice and solid, and it only sank when it split apart. Like, Anjay, that's not exactly
he
why
only
the
has
Titanic
dark
sank.
metaphors. He's talking about like the Donner Party and all this stuff.
But I just love this idea of like, well, the only reason why the Titanic sank is because it split up. Like, no, it hit an iceberg. There was a very key element that contributed to the ship splitting up and sinking there.
Yeah. Okay. All right, kids, time for a showdown. Everybody get in here for the big showdown. And
oh my God.
All right. Look, the kids are starved for entertainment. So we're going to have a challenge involving gumball machines and then doing some sort of like a mosaic paint by number. But instead of paint, you're going to use gumballs.
I love Jonathan, by the way, from the mimetic proportions. He's like an LL Bean catalog brought to life, right? Of like, here's a generic white guy in a Carhartt jacket saying, all right, pioneers, go. And he loves to like throw his arm forward. I noticed he did it when they did the revote. Like it was some sort of big challenge. Go and vote. Like he has the same exact energy every single time. He's, you know what it is? He's a Westworld robot, right? He has the same loop. He lives in the western town. Like this is his track. This is his narrative.
He may
I think
be
he's still
a robot.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right about that. And he is going through the same loop in every single episode. Pioneers.
Yeah, like his narrative is like, you know, some get killed, you know, some get consorted with, others have to host a children's television show in Bonanza City each and every day.
Okay. Phil, the gum chewing challenge here involves, okay, go get your gumball, then chew it, then hand it to another kid.
First of all, they give you a quarter. That's the part you left out, which is totally just unnecessary. I don't know why they were like, take your 25 cents and put it in the gumball machine. Like, there's no need to do that. Sorry, continue, Rob.
Yeah.
I just wanted to rant about that challenge.
So chew the gum and then spit the gum out into somebody else's hand, and then your town council leader will then place it on the map.
What? It's disgusting. I don't really want to watch kids just chewing gum and spitting it out and giving it to other kids. You know, it's almost as gross as that. Like when they in that challenge in Survivor where they eat the meat.
Well, I was going to say, so Rob, you participated in one of those challenges. I know you haven't participated in both of them, but would you rather do that again or do this one?
Who am I? Am I the gum chewer or am I the person getting the gum handed to me?
I would say you'd be the council leader in this point, because I think at least a credit to the Survivor challenge that everyone's in the same position at least, right? There's one that is not worse off than the others.
So I think I'd rather do this. I think that to make this worse would be if I was then taking the gum from the other kids and then putting it into my mouth. Because with doing the meat challenge, you know, our hands are tied behind our back, sort of getting your whole face in this big slab of meat. And the thing that I always say about this, it was really seared on the outside, but then when you got to the inside, it was, I would say probably undercooked. It was also 115 degrees that day. It was miserable. So I think give me the gum, and I am not a gum guy. Not a bubble gum guy.
I don't think anyone's going to be gum people after any of this. This is sort of the be careful what you wish for, right? Where the kids are yay, sweets and gum, and then you cut to Laurel self-masticating her jaw up and down, and all these kids are just complaining and rubbing themselves.
It sounds horrible. It sounds horrible to be just Violet Beauregard. That's what they needed, Violet Beauregard on that tribe to totally.
I love gum. Gum's for me. I would be the greatest at this challenge. You should me, town council leader. I would show everybody what's going on.
Man, she would have gotten the gold star every week. No, because she's
be
a
on
winner.
The blue team. Yeah. Traitor to the blue team.
Then you know what? Win-win. If she ends up turning into a blueberry, then you get rations for the rest of the season.
Sure. Kids, we've got some fresh fruit juice in the kitchen. So, Phil, this is the same show. This is the same show that last time out that the kids, they made such a big deal. Dental hygiene, kids. You need toothbrushes to brush your teeth. Now everybody chew 10 million pieces of bubble gum.
Yeah, because totally, Rob, think about it. When I think about entertainment and boredom, the one thing that will fulfill that boredom in my heart is chewing gum. That's the one thing. So I feel like chewing the gum was kind of necessary for this challenge. There's no way they could have done a challenge based on boredom and entertainment, without the gum chewing. So yeah, I think it's necessary.
Okay. Ultimately, the green team, they are finally upper class. Blue is the merchant class. Red are the cooks, and yellow did not finish. We did not get to see, or we did not get to win the reward. And
oh boy.
It all comes down to Zach. Zach could not get the gum to stick on the board. And so, all right, kids, let's see. And then, Mike, do they have to show the kids the prizes they didn't win?
I'm actually fine with it this time because this was such a lame ass, at least one perspective, was such the lamest reward I think I've experienced this entire time.
Okay, kids, let's see. This is the first behind door number 1. This is what you could have had.
It's paint for you to paint the whole town in colors that were all up to you. You could have painted Bonanza City and made it a little bit brighter.
Even he's not selling out. I'm like, all right, well, this is paint. You could use it to paint your house.
You could have auction or something like that.
Tonight, you could have painted the town red, but you will not.
Yeah, it's just all right, well, I don't think these kids wanted to do more work by painting. I guess they could have had some fun with arts and crafts for a day. But even the instruments, right? That's interesting as well. They bought all these toys and instruments for them last time, and now they're starved for entertainment. These kids go through these things like clockwork. What are they going to do? What are they going to do with paint? They're going to spend one night painting. They're going to be like, screw this. I'm not going to expend more energy painting.
And Phil, I would think they probably dodged a bullet that Greg and Blaine would have painted a giant phallus on the town hall.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking about. It's what would these kids have done with all of that paint?
Olivia would have painted
a good thing.
Anjay sucks on the cabin or something.
I'm surprised, someone didn't actually. Oh, it didn't happen, but someone would have drank it or something like that. You know what I mean? It would have been a mess. I don't know what they were thinking. Just in terms of, I don't even think Jonathan knew that this was going to happen. I think when they opened it, he was like, "Oh, it's we got paint? I don't know why paint, guys."
Yeah. You know how kids love to paint the town. Of course.
Exactly. Nothing they love more than taking giant paintbrushes and working buildings, just painting entire edifices a certain color. So this would have been one of the rare opportunities, right, where they took the more fun option, because the all-night block party not only sounds banging, but it beats paint any day of the week. They would literally be watching paint dry compared to a block party.
A block party was the other option. And I'll tell you, there was one kid that really wanted that block party.
Of course I was mad. He didn't get a block party.
Jared really loves block parties, Phil.
Yeah, I had no idea. He probably goes to them every single year. Have any of you guys actually been to a block party? I don't know.
I've been to a couple of block parties, but they're not like, I don't know, I feel like they're not the way they're displayed in like pop culture. Like there's not a clown there or like a bounce house or any of this. It's not like a
I've been to one with a bounce house, yeah.
I don't know. It's not really, I've not experienced it as like a sidewalk carnival. I've more so experienced it as like, hey, it's like a potluck meets like almost like a food fair.
Yeah, so the street that my parents live on Long Island, they used to do it like a couple summers in a row. They had like a block party, and they like closed the street, and I think they had like a bounce house for kids to go on. Everybody kind of like barbecued in front of their houses, and that was the block party. But the block party that was featured, like there was a disco ball. This looked like this was going to be a wild all-night dance party, Phil.
Yeah, they made it look like Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Like, it would have been popping all night. Like, there's no way anybody would have gotten... Oh, my God. Who would have drank all the soda? Greg would have gone crazy on the soda. You know.
I was confused, though, because it was initially revealed coming out of, like, that big crate, and I thought it was going to be sort of like the Teledisco from the Amazing Race season we just covered, Rob, where it was going to be like a mini disco. I did not realize that represented the larger block party, especially when next episode we're going to get, like, the little trailer with a TV and a couch on it as a representation of like the kids' lounge.
The kids' lounge. Okay. So, all right. Should we do get to the talent show?
Yeah, let's get to the talent show.
Okay. All right. So, the talent show, we're getting so much. We also get Savannah having a meltdown as she wants to go home, but we get one of these every single episode. Doesn't faze me anymore. I'm over it.
Next.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to see everybody getting ready for the stand-up show. We have so many different acts, but we don't really do a good job, Phil, of like identifying. Like, so there are kids that come out of nowhere.
Yeah, like they didn't ever say, okay, this is Eric and he's going to sing this song. It's just like they'll just cut through. It's like a montage in like a movie or something like that. Like they're totally just.
Was Eric the kid who like was pulling a Bruce Springsteen and singing about living in New Jersey? That was him?
Yes. He's going to have a bigger role to play against Greg and Blaine in the next couple episodes. But yeah, he makes his first appearance during the talent show.
I also like when Kelsey plays and Kylan's like, oh, it's like Chopin came back from the dead.
Yeah, but this Eric kid that shows up out of nowhere, he's like a big like Jacob Derwin like looking guy, right? He just shows up out of nowhere, like, who's this other big kid?
Penelope from Paramus. That's his hit song.
Phil, do you think they had an MC for the talent show?
It was like Markel, wasn't it? He was kind of just like bringing everyone in and out. But I would have liked to see some kind of speech, some kind of monologue before. You know what I mean? To really bring it all together. But he's kind of just shuffling people in and out. I don't know. This episode should have been. I would have loved to see the full cut of the talent show just for my own pleasure. It probably was not actually entertaining, which is what it's supposed to be about. Yeah.
All right, we saw Kelsey play the piano. We saw some kid do a bird call, Mike.
Yeah, wait, was that a bird call? It sounded like someone's like car alarm was going
I don't know what it was.
It's kind of just screeching. Yeah, that was Campbell, I'm pretty sure.
He's like, my brother taught me this. Like, did your brother trick you and think that was some sort of fox call or something? We got to talk about not only Jared's monologue, but Jared's dress attire.
Okay.
Between like the headband and the vest that he was wearing at the same time. It was very much like party on your head, business on your chest, party on your bottom.
Classic Jared. Here's a little bit of Jared's monologue of William Shakespeare.
What's to say? A very little must we do, and all is done. Then let the trumpet sound and the tucket sonance, and though we upon this mountain's basis by took stand for for idle watch.
You know, he really tried. He did. And, you know, he worked hard at it. Am I going to say he gave the greatest performance of all time? I think he acted better than Cody Calafiore. Yeah. I'll say that much.
Phil, did Jared turn out okay?
That's a great question.
I know Kiva did a lot of research into all these people. Is Jared like one of the active like social media people of like I think that he would be the person I would want to talk to the most from Kid Nation.
That's the thing is that, you know, I think now that a lot of people have been watching again because of the pandemic, you know, Jared is definitely the biggest standout character, even I think in front of Taylor.
Yeah.
But he's totally like so off the social media, everything. Like I don't think anyone really knows where he is. I'm sure contestants do, but he's kind of like MIA. Good for Jared.
Yeah, it says, according to a Tumblr post here, so you know it's reputable, the last we heard from Jared was graduating the University of Alabama in 2017. He's involved in gaming and science fiction. We have no idea if he ever went into the field of quantum physics. He has no work history listed.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if Jared's living in a bunker somewhere reading Shakespeare to this day.
Jared, if you're out there, we love you.
Yeah, no, we love you, Jared. Come podcast next episode.
I love the fact that his choice of play, too, right? Because like he didn't do Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet. He chose Henry V, which is like part of this quadrology called the Henriad of like of British history plays, as they were. So like, you know that Jared is a devout Shakespeare scholar when he picks like maybe 15th or 16th on the Shakespeare depth chart of like, no, this is the one. When you're an actor and you're doing a Shakespeare monologue, like these are the ones you seek out, right? Because everyone else is going to do the big plays. This is the one that you're like, no, let me pick the one that nobody ever does. That's essentially what Jared decided to do here.
Yeah. Jared, he brings the house down with his monologue. Then Greg and Blaine follow up with Shakespeare of their own. Phil, did you like the booking of Greg and Blaine right after Jared?
Yeah, it's sad because I think Greg and Blaine, their performances were a little bit better than Jared's. You know, I don't like Jared was kind of just reading the lines. It's good that he memorized all that, but Greg and Blaine, you know, they were atrocious, but, you know, there was some acting. There was some love involved. You know, Zach called Greg one of the funniest people in Bonanza, which was really surprising. That's not what I would consider Greg, you know,
no.
But I think the kids also just loved the fact that Greg was in a dress. And so they thought that was funny and that was enough and, you know, whatever.
Don't know how much humor there was there other than that Greg and Blaine were wearing dresses and it was an easy crowd to appease.
Wait, sorry. I'm getting really involved in a YouTube rabbit hole, and there's a Jared Goldman death hoax.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing. I remember even like before the show got big again. Like everyone, there was a YouTube video that came out like called like R.I.P. Jared, and all the YouTube comments were like, "Oh my God, the king is dead!" Like everyone was so sad, even though they found out it was not true at all. Jared's alive and fine, I'm sure.
Could this have been Jared's
Holy
idea
banana
though? Do
bread.
you think he's like, oh, we're so starved for entertainment, I must leave this world, shuffle off this mortal coil, to quote my master William Shakespeare, and just like made up this hoax so he could go underground and live out the rest of his days?
Yeah, he was pre-gaming. He was getting ready for season 2, so no one would know where he was.
Okay, all right. Thank goodness Jared is okay. It was just a hoax. All right, probably Greg and Blaine were behind that. So we see a girl singing. Do we know who this was, Phil?
I didn't write it down. So.
I think it was Devad.
No, it was Jasmine, actually. It was Jasmine was the one who was singing. Yeah, and she was really... she was doing all the singing, like the singery stuff that singers do, but like without the actual talent part. You know what I mean? Sorry, not to roast you, Jasmine.
Wow.
Okay, that I was hard.
Calling her real Sophia.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
You were all right, Jasmine. You were all right.
All right. Now let's get to the headliners. Olivia, stand up. Mike, I'm so glad that you're here because once upon a time, Mike Bloom and I used to podcast about Last Comic Standing.
Yes.
We talked about the different comedians that were out there. Okay. First off, that you knew Olivia Stand Up could not go on without a roast of her nemesis, Anjay.
Now, while we're talking about smiling, Anjay over here is smiling all the time. If you told the guy to go jump off a cliff, he'd be smiling.
And And the kids lose their minds at this. She found primo content, right? Like, you dunk on Anjay, everyone loves it.
Yeah. But all of her jokes were like, Greg and Blaine, that they are, I forget what her premise was, but they're like, I
can invent, she said, like, I can invent 3 million jokes about him.
But I don't have to.
Look at them. They're the jokes. Yeah. The thing with Sophia is that her jokes weren't actually funny. They were just like, she was just being mean, but all the kids agreed with it. So it was like, like.
No, it was more so going for like the clapter, right? Is the term of like, yes, I agree. Good on you. Rob, what would Roseanne have had to say about Olivia's stand-up where she performed on West Coast?
I don't even remember what that runner was. All I know, I could do Olivia doing like, I'm trying to think of who. Give me a subject to talk about as Olivia.
Talk to me about painting. Painting.
Oh my God. Have you seen just how boring painting is? I mean, you could go out there with your paints and be like, how boring is this? She's just like, she's gonna like basically tell you what the punchline is and then just reset it again.
Yeah, you know who looks like a painting? Anjay, because he smiles all the time. It's like he's in one position.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Peters would have loved that joke. No, the thing, she literally just said, Anjay, go jump off a cliff. And all the kids were loving it.
They loved it. Yeah. Okay.
I wonder, like, how much of that was prepared, right? Like, was it that she said she had a whole set? She gets thrown off by being told to be louder, and she's like, all right, I guess I got to default to my A material. Let's bag on Anjay for an entire 2 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Then we get to our showstopper. Here's Kennedy. I came very close to trying to screenshot this, Mike, and say that this is the worst episode of The Masked Dancer that they've had. She's kind of like, she's got like that like masquerade ball mask and like a boa on, and then is just doing like Phil, do we know what dance this is?
I have no clue. Sorry, I did not
like,
do
was
the
this
research
a Running Man?
It's also like whatever the pancake, was that what Lydia was doing in Survivor Guatemala?
Yeah,
they had like the groovy funk music in the background. It was a very strange combination.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone loves it. They were over the moon because she's like rapping like I walk like a penguin, and she performs it the next day as well. We see during a cut. Like,
I hated this.
People. I mean, this is
my least
favorite
like of everything.
Well, this is the epitome of like that kid's talent show, right? Like hey, we're at a party. Kennedy wants to perform something for everyone. Like, this is like the silly, goofy thing that kids come up with in their basement. It is now just sort of put on live television in front of millions of people.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the strangest things I think I've seen on like just like prime time television. Like millions of Americans are dedicating their time to just watching like Kennedy in that masquerade ball doing whatever for 2 minutes. It was ridiculous.
All right. Funny. After the talent show, time to figure out who should get the gold star. We see Devad again nominating herself. Phil, she has a one-track mind. Give this woman a gold star already.
You know what? But it pisses me off too much. Like every single week, if you're going to be campaigning for the gold star, it's like, all right, you know, I'm not giving it to you anymore.
That's
like,
her talent.
What did you do? What did you do? I don't know. I'm confused. Come on, give me something.
I think what you need to do is like make a pact within like a group of 4 of like, all right, we're each going to like nominate a person for the gold star each and every week, and we'll sort of alternate between this group so that everyone's going to get a chance. Because like you said, like if you're the one suggesting it, it can't be your idea because that's just going to look terrible on you. To quote, future Kid Nation season 2 mentor Boston Rob, you got to convince someone else that it's their idea.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna start to hear. Michael is nominating Olivia because she did the stand-up, but Kennedy is getting some push for being the person who, because it was so weird. Like during the talent show, who was it? Savannah, who was going to go home, right? Phil, she just like stayed up during the talent show, like, hey everybody, just so you know, I'm not going home anymore.
Yeah, and that never really gets brought up. It's just kind of this like one-time storyline. You know, Kennedy's doing it to help Savannah to like, make her feel comfortable or whatever. I'm not sure why her dancing weirdly would make Savannah stay, but it did. And all the kids were like, oh, yay, Savannah, you're staying. All those, like, some kids were like, were you leaving? Like, I had no idea. Like,
I did find it odd that it was an announcement in a public forum, right? Of like, hold on, everybody. Stop the festivities. I'm bringing this home with a big announcement. Hold on to your trousers. I'm not leaving Bonanza City.
Thank goodness, because we wouldn't have been able to have Kentucky night again if Savannah would have left.
They would have canceled the show, I think, if Savannah left. Like, they would have had to have a shutdown, and the network would have had to, like, regroup and try to restructure the show if Savannah wasn't there.
Okay. All right. So we go to town meeting, and Phil, I thought this was a wild way to open the town meeting, that Jonathan starts with saying, like, all right, does anybody have any other talents that we're like, no, we just had a talent show. We just had the talent show.
Well, I think his programming was stuck in talent show mode. So he's just like, all right, talent show, engage. Who needs to sing?
I'm sure, like, Laurel might have told one of the producers in a confessional, like, I can actually sing. And then they told Jonathan, and he was like, hey, does anybody? But yeah, Laurel ends up singing. And she just shows everybody up once again. Like, Laurel's just the greatest person in the whole cast, I think.
Yeah, DK really says, I want Laurel to sing. And then everybody peer pressures her, and here she is.
At first, I just thought to myself, I really think I can do this. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Whoever is blown away.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I want her to perform at my inauguration personally.
Or funeral, yeah.
Yeah, like, why did they ask J-Lo? They could have totally just asked, Laurel. Yeah. It would have been amazing.
Beats the hell out of Garth Brooks.
Excuse you, Rob. Imagine, and here coming out, ladies and gentlemen, singing Amazing Grace. Here's Laurel from the 2007 CBS reality show, Kid Nation.
Yeah, the place would have gone nuts. Twitter would have exploded. Okay, Kennedy gets the gold star. She calls her mom. Great. We don't really spend a lot of time with Kennedy's mom, right?
No.
The show knows that Kennedy is not flash in the pan.
The thing is, it's like when we kind of already know when someone's going to win a gold star because we kind of learned more about their, their home life, their personality, their story, their motivation. And with this Kennedy one, it's just totally like, all right, you did a weird dance. Like, we're not going to give you anything else. Like, word, you get the gold star. That's it.
That was your thing. That was it.
She also, doesn't she say, like, oh, the reason I got the gold star is because they give it to, like, people with great personalities? And it's like, that's not exactly the criteria.
That's
Maybe
what
it was for this
mom.
time.
Yeah.
At the end of the episode, Phil, we get like Devad kind of pissed off and like, oh, is this going to be the beginning of Devad's heel turn where she's going to become a real villain? Because they had that like with Greg at the end of one episode where he's like, I didn't get the gold star. Now they'll pay. And we kind of got that from Devad. But then I don't even think we see Devad for the next two episodes.
No, it doesn't really follow up in this segment. Although it was funny to just see the totally entitled Devad now, who's just, I think she's a little bit entitled. Just be like, I deserved it. But for what? Like, again, like, what did you do? Come on. Stop, don't be a sour.
She gets splashed with hot grease.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's true.
Well, no, she should be asking for the gold star from the lawyers. Just direct payout.
Direct payout. Have you been burned by potatoes on Bonanza City? If so, contact the law firm of Jonathan and Jonathan. Okay.
I liked also in this one, Jonathan, when he announced the gold star, he was like, that's a good start for the college fund. It was came out of nowhere.
Well, I think now, because I think, didn't Greg say that? Like, now it's just like, oh, these kids actually use it for something. Like, now he's just sort of filling in reasons. Like, oh, you can finally get that Range Rover you've always wanted.
Yeah, but like, is Mallory really thinking, oh man, I hope I get into BU? You know what I mean? Like, I really needed that for college. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about episode 9. And episode 9, I think it's like kind of a stretch. Like all these other episodes have like a theme, sort of like just sort of like put everything into like there's one sort of main idea. Phil, this one's a stretch here of we're talking about like what's fair and what's not fair.
Yeah, that's basically it. Like, yeah, like last episode, we're talking about how much they were really just like, all right, we know within the first 30 seconds, we know what this is. But in this episode, it's like kind of vague. Like, yeah, the title is like what? Like, again, something like just about fairness. It seems like very
it's called Not Even Close to Fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we start off this episode with a lot of talk about how many people on the green team have won the gold star. Mike, do you think that there was some sort of like insider trading where Laurel was trying to funnel all the gold stars to the green team?
Well, I think it's actually, like, I don't think it's entirely unfounded, because we'll find out this episode it's been cemented that the green team is particularly close. Like, I think of all the teams, Laurel feels like most defensive about her team. And so I do think if she's coming to the council meetings wanting to stump for a green team member and everyone else is like, I don't know about anyone else, like, her word is always going to win out from that perspective. So I don't find it too coincidental. That being said, I mean, this is the classic, like, Survivor Big Brother, like, everyone's too big for their britches now. They're showing off the gold star in the middle of this town square. I don't know who said this. Michael, I think, asked Kennedy if anyone thinks the gold star will significantly increase their sex appeal.
Yeah, here it is.
Does anybody else think the gold star will significantly increase their sex appeal?
What?
No, Michael.
No. I don't know about that one, Michael.
Why are they saying that? Why?
Are they gold star diggers?
Yeah, who taught you that, Michael?
Yeah, yeah. Cut that. Why include it? I don't know.
Why
like,
no one was thinking that.
I don't know.
I don't want these kids talking about each other's sex appeal.
Yeah. That's a good question, though. But did any of the kids, and I'm talking about like in a like summer camp sort of way, Phil, we've had almost no romance whatsoever in Bonanza City. There's not, this girl has a crush on this boy. I mean, have any of the cast members come out and talked about this?
Yeah, I remember reading an AMA. I don't remember who. I think it was Michael's AMA.
Oh no.
And no, but I don't really remember any specifics. But people did hook up. Like the older kids were hooking up with, or not like all of them or whatever. But it did happen. Some stuff did happen.
Could Olivia have such an axe to grind against Anjay because they were former lovers?
Yeah, yeah, and he was smiling all the time, even when they broke up.
Creeped her out.
Made her mad. Okay. So they go to the book. And Mike, what does the book say? That the problem in Bonanza City was they didn't switch up the people in their districts enough?
Yeah, it was just like everyone stayed too siloed, essentially. So it's time to mix up your districts. And even before that, we get like the ominous words of the Green District calling themselves the Gold District because they're the ones winning all the gold stars. And so you really get a feeling like the Green team is due for a downfall.
Yes.
Not going to happen immediately, though, because as the brokering starts, Laurel's going to keep her hands clean of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Phil, the problem, Bonanza City has become too tribal. That everybody is in their own little bubble and not enough intermingling, that we have some groups are not strong enough. We need to start moving some people around.
Yeah, it's because, they don't have social media. They can't be connected to each other in that way. That's what they were missing in 2007.
Yeah.
All the kids were kind of segmented and split apart.
All right, kids, you're going to invent a social network to share ideas with other people en masse.
Oh, great. So I'm from the Red District. I'm going to invent something I like to call Saloon, or maybe like Parlor. I think I'm going to go with that one and see how that goes.
The Red. Banned.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, the council has banned Parlor from Bonanza City.
All right, so we need to trade some people. It's time to mix up the districts, and Zach doesn't like it. Laurel doesn't like it. This is like, Phil, like the most benign of things. 3 kids end up changing teams out of like some 37 kids, and the whole system breaks down.
That's what happens when you interrupt the status quo. Like, it all falls apart, apparently.
We switched the bandanas with 3 kids, and there was anarchy.
Yeah, it's weird that they only picked one. It's something that I'm always
kids
like, I'm thinking,
burned it down.
I wonder, like, if the producers, because, it says, the team leader said that, like, they picked it, but I wonder if the producers had something in mind for, like, who they wanted to switch out, because I guess all of these switches are somewhat big deals. Like, I wonder what would have happened if it was, like, some random person. Like if Jasmine switched teams, like would anyone care? I don't know.
Yeah, there are definitive reasons behind this, right? Like Zach is sort of pissed off at first, but he's like, well, we did lose the last challenge, and like I'm kind of just like very much not on the physical team right now, so like some strength would be nice. Guylan is intellectualism now for some reason, so he wants a brain. And then and Anjay is sort of like he's trying to like essentially put himself as Sisyphus and like put an even bigger boulder in front of himself by being like, yeah, give me a challenge. I really need a challenge right now.
Yeah. All right. So Emily is going to go to the blue team. Emily hates the red team for some reason. We don't really get why.
Because they tell her to like do work. And I remember like, someone said to her, I think it was like Markel, it was like, hey, Emily, can you come help me get water for the laundry? And she's just like, no.
So she's going to get traded for Nathan, who nobody likes, except for Alex, who is pissed that Nathan gets taken away from him. But nobody really wants Nathan, but he's going to go to the red team.
It's a bad first round draft pick, I'd say.
Yeah.
Come on.
And then the other thing that happens is that Greg and Blaine get split up. Like, I think that Bonanza City could have survived the Emily for Nathan swap, but when Blaine gets taken from Greg and brought to the yellow team, Greg is not having it, and Greg is ready to bring Bonanza City to its knees, Mike.
But the interesting thing, though, is that Blaine does not feel the same way whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is actually a big breakout episode for Blaine. He's like, oh, this is cool. I don't get to be in Greg's shadow. Like, you really get to see now, like, if the toady steps out from, like, being the bully's sidekick, who are they as a person? And I do love the disparity of, like, Greg having essentially a meltdown to the point where I think he tries to, like, drag his stuff into the yellow team bunk to be able to sleep with Blaine. And Blaine's like, no, this is cool. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, he's like, yeah, Greg's overreacting, I think.
Mike, could you give us the Survivor or Big Brother analogy for this? Is this like Survivor co-wrong and then Scott gets voted out and then Jason is on his own and it's like a little bit more bearable to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, it could be the thing of, like once the two are really separated, then they really just become like that much less of a threat as well. I think that is a great example. Of course, you could talk about like the Danny Boatwright stuff, right? Like, oh, without Gary Hogaboom, I think we're fine with Danny now. But I do think that, like, specifically, maybe the Scott and Jason comparison is more apt, considering that those two were not regarded very highly.
Okay. Everybody is mad. So we have a big hullabaloo also when then they go, all right, Laurel, who is going to your team? And she comes out and says, we are not changing anything. And the room just goes nuts. Like, what?
I love that Greg, of course, takes this out on Anjay. Anjay, you traded.
Yeah.
You traitor, you.
You were a traitor. You could have just done a Laurel. Everybody is so pissed.
Yeah, ironically, now in this version, Laurel does not make a key decision. She instead chooses to not do one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think Laurel made the right decision or the wrong decision?
No, she's out of office by the start of the next episode.
And even her green team by the end of the episode is like, yeah, Laurel, I don't think you should have done that. So I would love to ask you guys as well, because like you guys have been watching the arc of Laurel since episode 1. Has this been gradual to you? Because it seems like we're sort of built up to now, again, going back to like the reality TV trope, like Laurel is the John Carroll, right? Like she is high and mighty, too high on her britches, and even her own team is getting sick of it. Like, did this come out of nowhere, or was this sort of, planting seeds from the beginning?
I felt like it was a total blindside. I don't know. Personally, I thought Laurel was a pretty great leader, and it seemed like she wanted to keep her people together because she knows how to, like, work her people, and she knows how to win a challenge with her people, and she knows everything, how to navigate everything. And so it did seem kind of shocking, not shocking that she kept her people, because that made sense to me, but shocking that, eventually she's going to lose political office.
Yeah, she was, I think, very popular among her group, but I think that she ended up sort of like really trying to flaunt her power too much to everybody, where I think everybody ended up getting pissed off at her, where her team was like collecting gold stars, but then now they're out in the street bragging about like, look how much sex appeal we have and all our gold stars. And then once this happened, and then really with Greg like reminding everybody how Laurel didn't even do it, I think then eventually everybody's going to come around and say, okay, Laurel's got to go. She was the sacrificial lamb.
I also realized, going back to Greg and Blaine, it's very much their quintessential Taylor Lee Stalker and Jay Starrett from Millennials versus Gen X, right? Like, here are these young guys that, and as soon as like one goes, it's like, yeah, you know what? Blaine's not so bad. You know, he's got that long hair. He's got that kind of like, 9 to 5 going bowling type of attitude. He's a fun guy.
Okay. So, boy, everybody is pissed. People say, Laurel, I hate you. It's everything is going crazy. Greg is going nuts.
He's handling it worse than Blaine, to be honest. Like, Greg like tries to go sleep with Blaine in the same bunk, and it's like, get out of here. Like, Zach's like, right. I can't have you sleeping here.
Yeah. I think my favorite, though, is the red team reaction. Because this is really Guyland's breaking point, right?
Yeah.
Where he's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I love that everyone on the red team is yelling at Guyland for picking Nathan, with Nathan standing about 3 feet in front of him. Like, Nathan sucks. We hate them. And then, I don't know, Rob, did you pull Jarrett's threat to Guyland?
Why is Jarrett, like, totally triggered about this? And they're like, I don't know, they're like by a jail cell, and like, Jared like puts himself in jail. This is Jared calling out Guyland.
I can just give you one piece of advice. Lock your cell door tonight.
What? And we know Jared can rage. I mean, we saw him flip over Devad's table last week. But is Jared going to kill Guyland in his sleep?
Yeah, exactly. Markel, you better hold me back. I'm going to cut a bitch. I'm going to paint the town with Guyland.
He gets one of the candy sticks he buys from the shop, and he really like brings it up to like Guyland's like neck almost. He's like, "You're off the council ASAP."
Yeah. And Mike also hates Nathan. What is Mike's issue, Phil?
I don't know. I guess just Nathan is not like a real team player. Nathan kind of does stuff on his own, but like, it's like, who cares? Nathan's fine. I don't know. Nathan, the funniest part about this whole thing is that even Nathan doesn't really want to be there. Like, as much as they're, talking about Nathan, like, oh, Nathan sucks. Nathan's like, I suck. I don't want to be here.
Nathan does suck. He is probably one of the suckiest kids in all of Kid Nation. He talks about how he's allergic to dust mites. He's the kid that wants to do all of the laundry. Like,
he sings when he sleeps.
Nathan does suck. There's no doubt about that. He also has another issue that apparently he sings in his sleep.
Honestly, we can do without Emily. But why do we need Nathan? He sings in his sleep.
What is wrong with this child?
He's singing loud, too. I expected him to murmur, but he's like belting.
Why, Nathan should have been in the talent show. Just put him to sleep. Roll his bed in there. Put a microphone in front of him. That's a gold star. Nathan has big young Sheldon energy, right? Of like, here's this like particular kid. Maybe they were looking at him like, I think we can make a character out of him one day.
So he was the star of CBS ahead of his time. Nathan.
What is he singing? He's rolling his R's.
In fairness, Mike, he is asleep. Okay.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Was he sleeping? Was he singing it like to lull himself into sleep? Was this a lullaby? A self-inflicted lullaby?
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe that's what his
Nathan.
Parents did to him, and now he has to kind of do it on his own. I have no idea.
I don't know. If I'm Jared, like, I want this distraction so I can go gut Guyland like a pig in sleep.
I also love how Alex is in the room, and even Alex is like, and he knows, like, Guyland's not very smart. Like, he outright says it, like, Guyland made a boneheaded decision. I don't think he's a smart leader at all.
The whole town is at each other's throats, where it's like a powder keg waiting to explode. Hunter thinks that the whole town is going to break down. We do have some thawing that Mike is starting to feel bad for Nathan, and it does start to accept him.
Yeah, I think, well, they have this, like, impromptu church sermon, right?
Yeah.
Where they have, what,
Pastor
900%
Hunter.
more attendance than the one from episode 4. And Hunter is essentially like, hey, remember, you should be nice to people. And Mike's like, oh, yeah. Oh, I was an ass before. And so he, like, ceremoniously ties the bandana onto Nathan's fly-ass bomber jacket to show he's a part of the red team.
He's part of it. Also, things are really getting tense between Anjay and Greg. Phil, at one point, Greg tells Anjay he's going to punch him in the face.
Anjay, because, Greg is like talking about like, it's a metaphor. And then Anjay's like, do you know what a metaphor is? And Greg is just like, insult me one more time, Anjay. Mm-hmm. It seems like, there are two opposing minds that they can't really find any good meeting spot. They can't really connect at all.
And then also Heiner Hogg from her stand-up debut, Olivia is like, oh, you look like a sad puppy. Go on, stand there and scratch your head.
She hates Anjay so much. Mike, could you believe Olivia wrote a book and Anjay wrote the foreword for it?
Yeah, I actually read the foreword, and like Anjay's super mature about it. She's like, she and I did not see eye to eye, but in exchanging some stuff afterwards, like, man, this really brought me back. That being said, Anjay seems like such a nice guy. I do wonder if he would write about like literally anyone's. And so it just happened to work out that like the very last person he would ever write a memoir about, he would write a memoir about any of these 4 kids. If Jimmy, the kid who went home in like episode 1, wrote a memoir, Anjay would probably write the foreword for it.
Do you think that Olivia was like, Anjay, you idiot, write the foreword for my book. That's right. Just keep smiling too while you're doing it.
Exactly. Like, here's this guy. He's always smiling, even when he writes the foreword for me. Maybe I haven't read the book. Maybe that's the tone that she has when she's writing in general of like, working on Kid Nation was so dusty. It was like, how much dust could there be? No more dust.
Is that Nathan commenting on the dust?
Yeah, that could be Nathan. Nathan writes the foreword. It's just achoo.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, kids, it's time for the showdown. Okay. I feel like that they got the math off on this because the kids needed to move a ton of rocks. And in hindsight, maybe that was too much.
Maybe. I don't know. I think this whole challenge might have been too much, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's mostly just like we get kids just kind of hurling rocks, just like throwing them either onto a barrel or off onto the wagon or wherever. It seems like really unsafe, especially if it's like that many rocks and they're trying to get a ton. Like, probably was not the smartest decision for this challenge.
Yeah, and so you could go fast or you could carry the most weight. So an interesting concept, Mike.
Yeah, it is an interesting sort of like, hey, do you pride individuality or do you pride the team? That being said, Green District unlocked the right strategy, which is just like, hey, load up, 500 pounds, whatever you estimate. And then like, as you go, if you find that it's getting heavy, just throw rocks to the side and keep going. You can't go back. So like, might as well load up as much as you can initially. But I mean, everyone sort of blows it here, right? Like you could blame Blue District for not necessarily pulling their weight, even though they do have the second highest amount of it, but nobody ends up getting under, over their like 500-pound quota essentially, and they lose out big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The best team was the red team, who did 485. So they missed this one by a lot, Phil.
Yeah, I don't know. I probably would have just gone the easy route, right? I mean, who cares about the rewards? Like, of course, this one might be a little bit bigger of a deal, but I probably would have just been like, oh, let me get upper class, not really care about any of this stuff.
Yeah, well, Guylan decides, ooh, this is the iron is hot. Let me strike right now. And is like, it's up. See, we all lost because the kids are too individualistic. And did Sophia tell him to F off?
I don't know. Let's listen in. Okay, here's Guylan at the end of the challenge, because we have, for the first time in Kid Nation, somebody is swearing and it got bleeped.
I know that every person here, no matter what they say, was concerned about their status.
No, not really.
Are you guys really sure about that?
Yes!
Galen, shut up!
For yourself, Guylan.
I was sort of offended that Guylan said that. We were not concerned about getting upper class.
And for the people who are just listening, she really points her finger right at him. Like, she's directing the F off right to Guylan.
Yeah. And Greg comes back from commercial break and says everybody wanted to say what Sophia said.
Yeah. No, everyone's like celebrating. Like Sophia might have gotten a gold star right there, right then, just for telling off Guylan.
For just saying that people are concerned about their status. Yeah. That's how much people are fed up with Guylan.
For her bravery and use of language, Sophia gets the gold star.
We don't use that kind of language here in Bonanza City. April 19th, 1885. Too many settlers were using profanity in Bonanza City.
And what's the showdown? Like, you have to say as many swear words as possible in a 30-second period.
They're going to make the kids eat soap, knowing CBS. You know they're going to be running back and forth with soap in their mouths. Trying to wash it out or something.
Oh, I love it. It was just so, like, brash and really just shows, like, I don't know. We can talk at the end of the episode about how much the second election was like, was this planned or was this sort of foisted upon it? But if it wasn't, you could see the wheels start to turn in production's heads, right? Of like, well, people really do not like the council. This would be a great time to see if we could overthrow these guys.
Yeah, I probably think that it wasn't. I don't know. I think it probably actually. I'm thinking in my head. It definitely was planned, I'd say. But definitely, like, in this moment, it was probably decided by production, like, all right, these people are not doing well. Like, let's do it. Let's jump in right now and change
Let's mix it up. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. Here's what you 2 in a row, no prize. Here's what you could have had. It was either beds for everyone or a kid lounge that's not big enough for everybody. Mike, would there have been any children killed or maimed if they would have dropped off the kid lounge?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, because the kid lounge looked like the dumbest thing, the most dull thing it seems like a place that, like, Jonathan lives in, right? Like, it's his trailer, and it's so basic. It was a singular TV. There were pillows on, like, a Chase lounge and Chinese checkers. Like, there was barely entertainment. And even Jonathan's like, and not everyone's gonna fit in there. So it's like, no, who would want this? Nobody wants this. There's not a confessional of anybody being like, oh man, I'm so sad we missed out on that trailer.
But I bet it's not freezing at nighttime.
That's true. That's true. I don't know.
It's
I would have liked to see the shot.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see all the kids trying to really squeeze in there like sardines and try to, all hop in a game of Chinese checkers. I don't know. I don't know what else they would have put in there, to be honest. Like a lounge? Like what 8-year-olds like, oh, I really want a lounge space where I can, I don't know. It's ridiculous.
No, if you want a kid lounge, if you want to appeal to children, especially in the 90s and 2000s, it has to look like Arnold's room from this cartoon, Hey Arnold. That place was the shit. It had a cool flip bed / couch. It had TVs. It had a clock that said his name. Like, we need all that. We need it to be decked out. It needs to be pimped out. We don't want Chinese checkers and throw pillows.
They throw a lava lamp in there and look cool. That's basically it.
They were going to pick beds for everybody. I mean, that was not even a close decision for the kids. All right. So Randy is crying.
It was the one they missed, too, of course. Just the one they missed. It was the beds, like, out of all of them. Yeah.
Okay. Randy is the kid who is on the verge of going home. So we see that she's in trouble. She's in trouble, and she's not doing so hot. And do we know anything else about Randy? Have we seen her before, Phil?
No. She's just one of, again, another person in Taylor's clique or whatever. We have Randy, we have Natasha, and we have whoever else.
Michael.
Yeah, Migle.
You said her name 3 different times. I think it's just to cover your bases, so you're guaranteed to get it right.
Is it Migle?
I think it's Migle. Yeah,
it's
okay.
Migle.
A very common name. My bad. I'm screwing up Migle. Okay, so then what else is going on? Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter has this little personal story bumper of like, my dad lost his job a year ago and he taught me how to work hard. But I think the bigger moment from the morning is Sophia saying, Skyland, I'm so sorry. I hurled a curse word at you in the middle of a challenge.
Yeah.
And he kind of just has to take it, even though he already knows in that moment, you know what? Being a leader's not for me. Whatever happened. I'm over this.
Guyland is like, if there ever was a lame duck, Guyland's a dead duck. He's just like, please get me off of this thing right now. If I had a time machine, I would go back and do it, but I can't, so I'm stuck here.
Yeah, Guyland is having second thoughts, and there's some talk about Blaine becoming the new leader for the yellow team. Boy, Phil, Zach had a meteoric rise and has really crashed back down to earth.
Yeah, what's he doing? The man is sleeping on the job. You know, Blaine's waking him up, and he's like, "Yo, the shops are closed. Like, come on, get up. Like, what happened? Is being a leader really that hard?" I mean,
yeah.
Kay was probably like, "I told you so. It's hard."
Yeah.
Well, I think it was that, like, it doesn't help that while Randy is crying about wanting to go home, cuts to Zach, like, buoying it up with the other guys laughing at Randy crying and be like, "Someone cries every night." Like, he doesn't seem like a very sympathetic ear. I believe, which I think, and was Randy the person that ended up being the swing vote to vote for him as well?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Wait, so he's essentially, you know, biting the hand that feeds him in a way.
Yeah. I also like that in that moment, you know, Michael is just like, "I'm concerned about the mental state of the Yellow District." Like, this is the first time they're actually like addressing like the mental health of the children. You know, we talk about the physical health a lot, but like, you know, Zach is really like making these weird faces, like these like laughing faces when Randy's crying about missing her family. You know, it seems like, you know, these kids should have someone to talk to. I know they had therapists, but like, yeah.
Oh, well, that Randy is upset. She has the greatest therapist in the world to talk to. That's Greg. Because Randy is crying. This was absurd to me. So Randy is crying, and then Greg, the pendulum swings the other way. He's now like he's gonna like talk to her and be like, "Oh, you know," and he physically picks her up and puts her to bed. He's 15, she's 12.
Maybe the rule is maybe it's less so about age and more so about, like, if he can pick you up, then he pities you. If he can't, then he hates you.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sure he can pick up Nathan. Yeah.
On the first episode, he tried to pick up Mike, but Mike wasn't having it, so that's why
he's
they
like,
had
"All right, you're on my bad list now."
But Randy says, "Oh, that Greg can be a good guy sometimes." So that was wild. We get to see really the highs and lows of Greg.
Yeah, I guess he has some like good, like not old brother, like some, you know, bigger brother vibes, you know, where he's trying to, I don't know, play that role or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Who should get the gold star? Morgan is talking about Blaine. We see Hunter in the mix for the gold star as well. It's coming down to Blaine or Hunter. So we'll see who's going to get the gold star.
You guys like Hunter? That's something I'm also curious about.
It seemed fine.
He
definitely seems like that sort of like good old country boy that they cast a lot in Survivor and Big Brother, right? But like, I literally know nothing about him besides that, you know, besides like that sort of like fill in the blank type of background that he comes from. And I can imagine, I don't know how much more he's going to pop off the screen either, unless he has the gold star involvement going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Boy, things get heated at our town council, and boy, Phil, everything's exploding.
Yeah, you know, everyone's just mad at the leaders for making these swaps, and this is the time where they can all have their outlet. You know, Greg calls Mallory more of a man than Anjay, which I'm sure he wasn't really appreciating.
Yes, and just for a reset, Mallory is the 8-year-old little sister of Olivia.
Yeah, he pointed at this 8-year-old girl and said, "She is more of a man than you are." And Anjay is basically like, "Oh my God, why did I not trade away Greg?"
Anjay!
Yeah, he's definitely not smiling anymore. And what doesn't help, I mean, you talk about exploding. Thunder literally explodes from above after Randy said that she wants to go home.
Want to go home? And then and then the skies open up.
Yeah, wait, what's going on with that? How did it happen? Because the way the show edits it, as soon as Randy raises her hand, the clouds come in, and
obviously, God doesn't want you to go.
Therefore, you must stay.
But the kids like acknowledge it in the show too. Like they're like, "Oh wow, like look what happened." Like how did that even happen? I have no idea.
Yeah, that was it. That was all it took for Randy to stay.
Well, you know what it was? It was that the powers that be, and I mean, you know, whoever's above,
the producers of Kid Nation,
they're like, okay, well, we don't want Taylor to go because she's gold, and Taylor's linked to Randy. If Randy goes, there's a chance Taylor may go. So like, let's send a signal in the sky to really say, don't go, Randy.
They're like on the roof, like doing like an old timey like radio show.
Yeah, with the thunder
big sheet metal, and they've got the hose up there spraying water on the roof.
They should have just got on the microphone of like, "Oh, this is God. Don't go, Randy. I'll give you a gold star. A God gold star.
A God
star. Gold without G-O-D.
Yeah. Blaine is going to get the gold star. He's been separated from Greg. He's a new man. But who's upset with the town council? Everybody raises their hand. Phil, 0% approval rating for the town. Blaine is the only one that's happy, I think.
No, it was honestly shocking. Even watching like the green people, because again, I always thought Laurel was a good leader, but it seems like the green people said, or Laurel did a bad job of letting them in, welcoming other people into their team or whatever. But it seems like, I don't know, like you guys were working great.
No, Mike, Bonanza City is such a mob that they hear one thing from one person. Like Greg gets the whole room riled up and it's anarchy. They're ready to overthrow the government.
Well, I think it's also that, like, the council has now been lumped together. Like, it's not 4 individuals. It's now one whole thing. So, like, it could be a thing with the green team where, like, even though Laurel did not do this certain thing, it's like, well, the council did this. Like, yeah, the council. We hate all 4 of them. All 4 of them are equally to blame for all of this. So I think to Phil's point, it seems like the green team was, I think, a little angry about the fact that, like, Laurel did not tell them that she had the opportunity to swap and that she, like, they assumed that she presumed better for them, and they seem at least more willing to extend an olive branch, at least at this moment, than maybe Laurel herself. So, I mean, the big cliffhanger, I think the only cliffhanger we've had so far, is that the council's going to get some challengers here.
Yes, okay, so that's the cost of doing business. It's re-election time, and so we find out that DK wants to run for the Red District.
We love that. Or at least,
at this time.
At the moment, we love that.
We love this. Love this. Blaine wants to run. Yes, Blaine, new Blaine.
Yeah, the new hotness.
New hotness. But wait a second. Who's this? By God, that's Greg's music. Greg wants to run for Blue Township leader.
Any semblance of a smile that Anjay still had fell immediately as soon as Greg challenged him because he knew he was screwed either way.
You can see Sophia just facepalm like, oh, God.
And then finally, a contender steps up to challenge Laurel, and it's Michael.
Why didn't Sophia run? That's what I'm confused about. Like, I don't know. Like, Sophia does a good job. She didn't want to run. Michael's all right, though.
No, I think Michael is the more amiable person. Like, didn't he get a gold star because he's, like, so chill?
He's a nice guy.
So I think he is more so the cult of personality than maybe even someone like Sophia, especially compared to, like, if you want someone that will not be, high on their horse, I think that Michael is that type of guy. Like, he's down in the mud with the ponies.
All right. Phil, any thoughts from Blaine's phone call to home?
Yeah, Blaine's dad, he seems kind of like in disbelief that the show is even happening. He's like, oh, wait, interesting. Oh, word, I'm glad you're doing this. Good job, son. I don't know.
Oh, wait, you were gone?
Yeah, he's like, oh, I had no idea. I thought you were just surfing. I don't know.
Okay. All right, so we have To Be Continued. And we come back for episode number 10, which is entitled Let Me Talk. And it's all about communication and respect in Bonanza City. We go right into, Mike, election day.
Yeah, and I do feel, I guess everyone was sort of thrown for a loop. I do feel bad for the incumbents because they clearly had no idea, unlike the last election, that like their jobs were on the line. And so all 4 of their speeches are pretty weak sauce, especially Laurel is like stunned because she never thought, because she was unchallenged last time. Guylan is just quick to bail, but I don't know, you feel for Zach and Anjay in particular here. I know that Laurel's been built up for the villain, but Zach and Anjay seem like they actually do care about their districts, and they get overthrown for essentially like the 2 big bullies of Bonanza City.
Yes, okay. So we have the battle of it's DK versus Guylan. Here's Guylan's speech.
Guys, please vote me off.
Okay, all right.
Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him.
So DK becomes the new leader of the red team. Okay. We have a vote of Michael up against Laurel, and Laurel's voted out. This is a stunner, Phil.
Yeah, I feel like, to Mike's point, I feel like if they had more time, Laurel would have done a lot more social work, I think, with her team to actually...
She would whip the votes.
Yeah, she would have totally, like, gotten the group together and be like, all right, no one's contesting me. Like, I'm going to become the tribe leader again. But no, and even in Michael's speech, Michael, like Laurel was talking about how, you know, she's been a great leader, da-da-da-da-da. Michael just says, I'm just running just to like test myself to see if I can do it. And that's his speech. But everyone just wants a change. So Michael's now leader.
Yes. Okay.
But I feel like that's a terrible, because I mean, who was the last person to say that? Guylan. And look at Guylan.
It'll break you down.
Do you want another Guylan? I don't think nobody's platform should be like, yeah, I thought I'd give this a try in any form of politics.
Yeah. Then we have Zach, whose star has fallen. That it looked like that he came onto the political scene with a head of steam and then just completely crashed back down to earth. He gets beaten by Blaine, of all people.
I do wonder, you know, it was very clear with that vote with Taylor, like what the breakdown was. I do wonder who voted for Zach and who voted for Blaine, right? Like did Taylor and her group take revenge on Zach by voting him out, right? So it was like almost like a similar breakdown, but this time Blaine was the swing vote and swung the other way.
Mm-hmm. And then finally we had Greg defeats Anjay, going away 7-2. And Anjay, what a good sport. Still smiling, Phil.
Yeah, you know, he always kind of takes that kind of stuff well. But unfortunately, this is kind of a disaster. And I think everyone kind of knows, like, in the moment, they have to be assuming, like, oh, God, what did we just do? Greg and Blaine are both on the council. I think.
Yes, there's like, everybody's like, yes, this like populist movement of like, yes, we voted out the entire town council. And we've just put Greg and Blaine back together on the town council. Yeah, my God.
Didn't really think of the second part of the sentence, specifically the background check. You know, I don't know exactly what Greg's tax records are. You know, how many properties has he bankrupted in the past? No. He has a great message. He's able to rile the town to around a certain message. I think we should put him on there and give him a chance.
You know, everyone's disgusted, but at the same time, they're the ones who let that happen.
Yeah. Like Greg got the entire crowd like worked up enough into like such a like fervor, and then they voted off the entire town council and then elected Greg and his best buddy to the town council. And this was a mistake. Our lack of lounge came from smiling Anjay and the council. Vote them out. Put Greg in.
I think this is one of the funniest things. I think this might be the funniest thing that happened in the show, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. So there's a lot of talk about what are they going to do now. Sophia is not happy that Greg and Blaine are now on the town council. Zach, he's ready to pack it in, Phil.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the thing. See, Zach last week was, you know, he was like making fun of Randy, like crying about missing her family. And now here comes Zach, you know, looking at a photo of his parents like, oh, wow, I actually do miss them. Yeah, it's hard. Come on, man. Like, I don't know.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Mike, DK is going to talk with the leaders. You know, I think that the problem here is we don't have enough respect for people. Do they get this from the book? Have they?
I don't know. They didn't visit the book of like, well, Bonanza City fell apart when everyone couldn't respect each other and everyone was talking over one another. They did not do games from 7th grade that helped everyone learn not to interrupt one another. So maybe you should do that too.
Yeah. Okay. So Blaine is going to say, okay, we're going to do a game. It's called the communication game, where everyone has to talk. And then if anybody interrupts, back to one. Got to start the whole thing over again. And so, Phil, maybe this is going to be, these new rules are going to help with the decorum in Bonanza City.
Yeah, I don't know where exactly they wanted to go with this game. Like, what was it actually going to accomplish besides just everyone introducing themselves? I think, obviously, they knew people were going to mess up, but I'm surprised at how bad some of these kids actually were at this game. Like, you know, I think, you know, Kelsey was just introducing herself and Natasha just starts like laughing. I don't really know why, but it seems like the kids can't really keep it together.
Maybe she loves Pennsylvania. And this just brought back horrible memories. Because as someone who grew up doing a lot of theater, this is a game very similar to this that, to your point, is not really about communication, more about like concentration and gelling as an ensemble, where you count from 1 to whatever number you want to, but only one person can say a number at a time. If more than one person says a number together, then you have to start all over again. And it was the most like frustrating test of endurance to all get on the same page. And I can't imagine, especially at a young age, when you were starved and freezing, having to do that as well. So it just was like it's a terrible exercise coming from people who, as they'll very quickly bring up, do not practice what they preach.
Yeah. But Phil, why? What was this going to accomplish?
I think it was just Greg and Blaine now celebrating the fact that they were in power and they could have them literally. They were like, dance, monkey, dance. Do my bidding. Do whatever. I don't really care.
Nobody likes this. The game is a bust.
Well, because Greg's like, all right, you guys need to learn how to respect each other. And then, like, when somebody laughs, like, Natasha, you idiot. Look what you did. You ruined it for everyone.
And it's like a game about respect. But then, like, when someone says, like, it's their birthday, Pharaoh's like, happy birthday. And Greg's like, you failed. You lose. Good day, sir. Like, he's like, you have to start over. Like, he's just saying happy birthday.
Yeah. Eric is the one who is calling out Greg for this, that he really doesn't like it. Markel also is another person, a big detractor of the communication game. Michael hates it.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, again, it's this idea of, and maybe this speaks to politics as well, right? Of like espousing values that you yourself do not possess. It's sort of tough to have Greg specifically be the paragon of, guys, we all need to talk in turn. Let's not be insulting to one another, and let's have a lot of honor and respect for your fellow man. That's not Greg. That's never been Greg.
Okay. So, later that night, we see a meeting. Michael and Laurel and some of the green team members, Eric, they're having a secret meeting. And they're talking about how we did not like the communication game, but guess what? Guess who is spying on Michael's campaign? It's
Greg and Blaine.
Yes. They're hanging outside the window and they overhear everything. And they hear that Eric says basically that I wouldn't even mind if they just sat in the middle of town and talked to everybody instead of if they enforce these rules like this.
Yeah, and they're really pissed at Michael in particular. Like, Michael, we thought you were cool. You were one of our friends, and now you're bad-mouthing us behind your back to your green team friends. But I love this. So much shades of Sandra Diaz Twine, right? Just like they're in like, they're not even in a spy bunker or a spy tree. They're just standing outside of the cabin, just happening to listening in on the green team, I guess, yelling out the window about how much they hate Greg and Blaine.
So, Phil, somehow, they say, oh, Eric wants us to just sit in the middle of town and talk to everybody. Eric, your wish is granted. Okay. And now somehow they also flip DK during this, like where DK has been nothing but a stand-up guy for 9 episodes of this show. All of a sudden, DK is the third wheel to Greg and Blaine.
Yeah, I think they got DK just based off of emotion. You know, they were just like, they were saying... They were
talking
DK,
about us.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, they think you're a bad leader. And so DK is all of a sudden now... DK's like been riled up for this next 5 minutes. He's upset. You know?
Well, that's a great point, though. Could Greg and Blaine either intentionally or unintentionally thought that included DK as well? And it was like, DK, they were talking so much crap about you specifically. You need to join our cause too.
Yeah. All right. So now Greg and Blaine and DK now set up shop in the middle of town to, as Eric said, talk to everybody, but actually instead they're going to catcall all of the women of Bonanza City.
Yeah. Taylor, you're looking good today.
Yeah. Hey, Natasha, how you doing? You're looking good. Yeah, mamacita. Yeah.
You're looking nice and hot.
Hey, Sophia, you're looking good today.
Oh, yeah, I love those shorts. You wear them every day.
Yeah, so we're going to prove how wrong these people were about our lack of respect by complimenting everyone's looks and outfits on a surface level as they're walking by.
Were they trying to insult or compliment Sophia with, hey, Sophia, those shorts that you wear every day?
I think it's like a sort of like an open faced compliment sandwich where like it's a compliment, but there's like a little bit of sarcasm in there, right?
Oh, they're negging her?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, look at those grody shorts you wear every day. You know, like, again, which shows that even when they try to be complimentary, they'd be insulting at the end.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. I think just when Greg and Blaine, like, are complimenting people, it's that type of thing where it's like, all right, I don't know, you look attractive. I don't know. It's like that type, like that's the only thing that really comes to their mind there,
Or it would be like a compliment to them is like a less harsh insult, right? Like compliment me. Well, you don't look as ugly today as you usually do. Like a real backhanded compliment is the way that Greg and Blaine usually comport themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so they're carrying on. Eric comes out there. It's like, guys, what are you doing? Like, oh, Eric, you said, we heard you. We heard everything. You said, why don't we go sit in the middle of the town and talk to everybody? You're a hypocrite.
Yeah. And this is exactly what Eric had in mind. He wanted everyone to catcall everyone, of course. And it seems like it's like Beavis and Butthead in power. It's just like, what are you guys doing? It's insane.
And then all hell breaks loose. When you rile up hippie kid Michael, you know that like you have pushed things too far, where they have to physically drag him away while he's screaming at them.
Yeah, Michael is going crazy. Phil, is this the biggest fight we've seen in Kid Nation in Bonanza City?
Yeah, I think so far this is definitely the biggest fight we've seen in the show. It's because it's the leaders. It's literally all 4 leaders in the center of town, just arguing with each other over like catcalling and nonsense. The city's totally falling apart.
It's completely devolved. Mike, we're fighting on both sides over who's the Nazi regime here.
Yeah, a lot of comparisons to that, which considering gold star symbology, I don't necessarily love. But Blaine also reveals to that point, like he's like, you know what? We might just withhold the star. We might not give it to anybody. I did not realize that was an option, but I'm assuming if you're production, you're like, yeah, I'm going to make that an option. I want to create drama. I would love for the town council one time to be like, nobody's getting it, you little assholes.
Because there are no rules with the star again. Like, I think the leaders could give it to themselves, I'm pretty sure, or they could just totally withhold it. So I think this is it's a fun way to do it.
Okay. There is some healing. Laurel reminds everybody that, look, this is a town, not a district. We can't just have one strong district. We have to work together.
Yeah, look at like post-presidential Laurel here. She's retired. She's had some time to think for herself. Unity. I mean, she had a real come down, right? Like she had that morning after where she like stormed off being like, I can't believe I'm not in power anymore. But now she's like, yeah, you know what? I let the power go to my head, and I think now we could extend an olive branch or a handshake in the case of Michael, which is as good as his word.
Okay.
Yeah. How much this week do we think that Laurel's just like, I'm not a council leader, so I might be able to win a gold star this week. You know what I mean? I think, sometimes I'm thinking, she's thinking this might actually be an advantage for her.
It's very true. Yeah, she's the one that's seen as sort of like the Camp David, right? Like she's the peace broker between the warring council, and she has that influence even though she's not on it. I think this is win-win for Laurel.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, Michael is going to try to talk to Greg and DK. And Phil, is he able to talk some sense into them?
No. No, not at all.
Greg wants to come down on Taylor. This is not a lot of Taylor in these last couple episodes, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit with Randy, but we get back to, of course, Taylor being lazy, and Greg tries the Greg version of pushing Taylor along, which is essentially to threaten her. And basically, and DK specifically is like, hey, you know what? If we win the reward, you're not getting anything because you don't contribute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Taylor's like, she said she's quitting from working. But like, it's like, were you ever working before, Taylor?
Yeah, deal with it.
An empty threat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but to that point, though, then she responds like, I don't care. I'm going home anyway because I lost Randy. Like she just like lets it all out there. And this is our big major. I think Zach was sort of the red herring. I think our big who's going to quit storyline for the episode is Taylor. And you could feel people for the second time this season frantically scrambling of like, we cannot lose Taylor right now.
Okay. Showdown number 10. Gather up, pioneers. Okay. Mike, are you excited to hear about the Order of Inventions? We did Order of Presidents. Now we'll do Order of Inventions.
I mean, this is a lot harder than Order of Presidents, in my opinion. I guess it just helped that from the alliteration perspective that the first 3 were all the T's, but this is something that I would get less today than I would the Presidents, which I think were, fairly straightforward. We weren't getting into, like, the more menial ones like Zachary Taylor and Rutherford B. Hayes. They were pretty much, mainstream ones. This one is like, all right, when did the telegraph get invented in comparison to the record player? And I think unless you are some of these whiz kids who studied like the specific dates and inventors, it's got to be tough to figure out because these kids don't know anything past the year 1950 from a history perspective.
Phil, would you be able to do this?
That's the thing. It's like does any kid know what a phonograph or a phonograph is? Like a phone versus like a telegraph versus like, I totally like just mix all this crap up. I don't know. I know radio and television. Those are the only two things I know. And that's kind of the only thing I'd be able to track.
Well, I think they need to come up with a song called like, Telegraph killed the Telegram star, and then phonograph killed the Telegraph star, because we have video killed the radio star. That's a very easy chronology, but we need the rest of it to tie into the timeline.
I think this is very hard. I mean, I feel like if I gave my kids like a Victrola, an 8-track player, a VCR, and a DVD player, they would not be able to put those in order.
Well, it doesn't help that because vinyl is on its way back now, you'd think the Victrola is the most recent, actually.
Yeah. Okay, Phil, they also, communication is very important, so they have to, like, carry a pie on, like, a long stick.
Yeah, Jonathan says pie holders too much for my liking. He's like, you have to take your pie holders and put them up and make sure you hold,
Our Kid Nation branded pie holders now available in the CBS store to play at home.
Yeah. All right. Ultimately, it's going to be the red team that has the most problems. Mike, DK is really struggling with this, especially then Mike is also yelling at him, and DK does not want to take his answers.
Yeah, it's more so that, like, I think Mike got something wrong once, and DK's like, I don't believe you anymore. You're spouting nonsense to me. And so as it counts on, I don't think... We still don't know after the commercial break whether or not the final order was from DK or if he finally relented and listened to Mike. But, you know, the other fun stuff that came out of this was we got a little bit of like a Blaine dumb at it, right? He doesn't know what a phonograph is. Zach courteously calls him a moderately intelligent young man. The other thing that I loved, which I would have totally done, is Emily eating the pies. Like, if I'm handing off pies, and it's not pies, right? It's just whipped cream on top of a pie plate like they usually do in Wild and Crazy Kids. Like, I get a little bit off the top. Why not? I'm just standing out there at the top.
A little whipped cream, you know, throw it on, save it for later in the kitchen. No,
I'm helping the job, right? Because like they have to scrape it off at the end of the day. Like waste not, want not. We just learned a few weeks ago about waste.
Yeah, Blaine puts television first. Like, let's really like work through that one.
Yeah.
Like, come on, Blaine. I don't know. Maybe electing you for the leader wasn't the perfect decision.
All right, so. All right, let's see the rewards.
Oh, my God.
Behind door number 1 is something that the settlers in Bonanza City used. Ponies?
I don't, like...
They weren't really to ride. It was like, you can make them take the water.
This is so bad. This might have been a shade better than paint. Because at least, like, the ponies could maybe be used for hauling. But we've seen The Amazing Race so many times to know that, like, these are live animals that cannot be tamed. I just love that it was a legitimate decision between letters from your parents or a gaggle of smelly ponies.
Oh. How do you know they were smelly ponies, Mike?
Oh, Amanda Rabinowitz told me.
They're not too big enough.
No, yeah, exactly. Smart. But I don't know. I just love this. Like, all right, we really need like a Rafe's choice here. We got letters from home. What's equally as weighing?
Pony Express.
A bunch of ponies that they can use around the town.
Yeah.
Like, you have 10 days left. You're really, like, concerned, like, oh, I don't want to carry water for the next 10 days.
Yeah.
Like, it's
I think that the ponies would be more appealing if it's like, you could use them for meat.
Yeah. Do we know if Manya is one of the kids in Kid Nation? She loved a good pony.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I just such an inane. And for a second, they tried to make us believe that they were actually going to pick the ponies, which actually, knowing this council, they may have actually done so.
Well, yeah, Greg is the one that makes the call, and he says, he's like, Jonathan, we're gonna take the ponies and throw them out the window, which you should not do. That was...
I can pick up the pony, therefore I have pity on it, so I don't chide it that much.
Phil, and then they give out all the letters, and they don't give out one to Taylor, and they sort of say, Taylor, you want this letter? Do you? Like, you're going to start being good now, aren't you?
Yeah, like, were they really allowed to withhold the letter from Taylor's parents? Taylor's mother was not going to have that. If they have to withhold the letter, they would not have been pleased.
You know what they should have done? They should have pulled an Ica You take her letter and you
letters.
feed it to the pony.
The horse eats the letter.
Looking at Taylor's face, that would have been classic.
Deal with it, Taylor.
This pony's eating your family's words.
But I don't know. I do like that we get a little bit of a nice moment with Taylor. You know, Taylor's been quiet for this like last 3 episodes. We haven't really gotten that much from her. And the stuff we have gotten, you know, is the emotional stuff, like with Randy. And I don't know, like we do. I'm glad that, you know, we get this like a small little emotional moment with Taylor and getting the letter right here. It was good.
All right, we're gonna read the letters. Mike, we spent a lot of time on Laurel's letter.
Yeah, I also love, we're going to find out Laurel's parents later have an even thicker Bostonian accent than her, like bordering on Trish Haggerty, like, oh, you got that Bonanza City money.
Here, I pulled this, when Laurel gets the gold star, here's her call to mom.
Come here! I'm just really happy. We had this thing, it's called the Gold Star, and it's worth $20,000. Well, I kind of won this time. You won $20,000?
Mike, what does she say at the start of the call when the mom is?
She's like, yeah, come here.
Come here.
Yeah, I think I recently read that Laurel's family is being cast in a Ben Affleck movie very recently. They're playing the extras because they just have thick Bostonian accents. They fit right in.
Phil, did you notice the score of Amazing Grace underneath the call to Laurel's mom?
Oh, wow.
I'm just really happy. We had this thing, it's called the Gold Star, and it's worth $20,000. Well, I kind of won this time. You won $20,000?
I don't know if you're going to do anything above this mom's primordial scream.
The editors really thought they did something with that.
Yes.
Is Amazing Grace Laurel's theme?
Make sure you sing a public domain song. We've got this one.
Ma, you won't believe it. I said, just sing Amazing Grace.
Come here!
What's the matter?
Yeah. Laurel's brother even misses her. So, because I was a little stumped, Phil. I did not see Laurel getting the gold star. I'm like, boy, who's getting the gold star this week? Are they just not going to give it to anybody?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was the type of thing where everyone just assumed, all right, Laurel's been doing a good job before, let's just give it to her here. Because there was no real plot line. Like, who would you even give it to, like, with the story arc here? Like, Michael couldn't really get one, because, you know, he's the leader, so it just, I don't know, like, there's been no one to give it to. The ponies? I don't know.
We're going to give this gold. Ponies, you've eaten Taylor's letter. Hope you made room for a gold star.
Yeah.
It's worth its weight in gold.
All right, so let's check in at the town hall. Some people do not approve of the new town council. Looks like it's a divided Bonanza City, Mike.
It's pretty much the green team is in disapproval, and everyone else is like, yeah, they're okay, which makes sense considering that the green team were the ones that were directly antagonized by Greg, Blaine, and DK. So of course they're not particularly happy. And then of course, talk about timeliness. Here comes AJ with the First Amendment talking about who has rights to censor whose speech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get into a lot of Greg talking about how he gives out tough love. That's what he does. Tough love for everybody.
Yeah, and you know, people are just critiquing Greg, and Greg is just like, you know, Greg is trying to defend himself, and then Michael's like, yo, like, don't defend yourself right now, because they're just trying to talk to you, and Greg is just like, I'm not defending myself, but I think that, yada, yada, and it's just like, it's total, there's no communication. Like, this whole episode hinges on communication, but there's nothing. We get nothing.
And then right when you think, like, okay, Greg's gonna, finally listen, he says, all right, ultimatum, if half of you want me to go home, I'll go home right now.
Yeah, they should have called his bluff.
Yeah, look,
they should all
so sensitive, man. Yeah. He, like, come on, like, I feel like he takes this stuff personally, but he doesn't really know how to, like, actually express it besides just being like, you want me to go home or you want me to stay? And of course, people want him to flip over the outhouses, so they want him to stay.
They need him to always good worker.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he definitely is like the why you mad bro guy, right? Of like, oh, like, wow, I can't, like, Anjay, you're crying over, you know, all this Titanic stuff and losing the town council. And then, like, as soon as he gets accused of stuff, he's like, what are you talking about? Stop calling me names. That's it. I'm done. No more outhouse pushing. But they no one wants him to go. They basically just say, like, hey, stop being stop being a dick, but still stay and help us with your big 15-year-old strength.
Nobody's listening to me. Okay. All right. Who's going to get the gold star? It's going to be Laurel. So congratulations to Laurel. She calls her mom. She gives a hug to Greg. They're on the same page.
Nice. Get a nice little moment with them, too.
Yeah. All right. Mike, anything else from this episode?
I don't think so. But man, I mean, you guys talked last week about how, I think Phil in particular, about like how the hangriness and the fatigue is starting to settle in. And we really experienced so many highs and lows, right? Like, I feel like the talent show was a real high in terms of everyone like having a great time. And then almost as immediately as the next episode, things just hit rock bottom with just the mood is completely depleted. Everyone's whipped up into an uproar that only exacerbates with the new council. Like, these are definitely the three most climactic episodes, particularly episodes 9 and 10 of the season so far.
Yeah, a lot of upheaval that went on here in Bonanza City. I think it's been interesting that the show started with like a completely different town council than what we're at. I think it's interesting that the town council now is completely all guys and all older guys. They've sort of like, I think that the producers have sort of like whatever the mechanism was going to be, it has ended up in the hands of like the oldest and most influential like bad actors in the group for the most part.
Yeah, it's really weird that it worked out that way. It's kind of surprising and it's a little frustrating, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's upsetting, I guess.
Well, so it's weird because, they're older, but like Greg sort of pitches himself to the younger kids, right? Because he's like always helped them. So it's almost like he has like the younger kid block and feels like he can represent them, even though, as this episode proves, like at the moment, he's only really in it for himself.
Yes, he gets the younger kids to not vote in their best interest.
Yeah.
He's their bully. So I think that maybe there was be a better mechanism to elect the leaders of Bonanza City than to just have like the biggest, strongest kids like yell at everybody.
It's also because I think because of like their physical stature, they tend to have the more louder voices in the crowd. And so I think people conflate that with leadership sometimes. Like that's what happened with Greg of like, well, Greg's big and yells a lot. That makes him a leader type. I think he'd do well being the determining voice of our district.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Like he'd be the determining voice of our district. And I think that it very quickly shows. And who knows, maybe to come, Greg in particular is going to turn around with his new role on the council. But I think it definitely shows that like just because someone is speaking up about something may not mean that like they are particularly right for sitting in the position that they are yelling at.
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like a lot of it also just has to do with just like the psychology of like when you're Mallory's age, you see an adult figure. And of course, like when you see Greg is kind of like an adult. So you'll, vote for someone like that over, someone of your own age because, your peers.
Vote for Greg. He reminds me of my dad.
Says a troubled young kid. Okay. So we had some questions from the patrons of Robin's podcast. We've been having a Facebook question thread on episodes 8, 9, and 10. Some of these things we covered, but some we didn't. Sarah Steele wants to know, in what universe does the coolest kids lounge ever include Chinese checkers and 30 pillows?
None. For 2007 kids, let me say, none.
No, absolutely not. There's you need to have at least one game system in there in order to make it barely eke onto the cool meter. Right now, it is firmly away from any sort of radar at the moment, unless this is just like the out of touch adults, are the ones that are figuring this out of like, all right, well, we can't have brands. What do kids like? What's that thing in a doctor's office all the time? Oh yeah, Chinese checkers. Let's bring that in. Let's remind kids of the dentist.
Should have brought a Wii in there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it's 2007. These kids would have gone crazy over one of those.
These kids are going to be spending a lot of time at the dentist. So I think that after that gum challenge, they want to get them used to it. Okay. Mike Christensen says, I'm honestly surprised production didn't have Jared give a confessional about oral herpes after that gum challenge. Mike, what would that have been like?
Well, oral herpes was the number 4 cause of the Industrial Revolution. We see how it brings great change in our society.
He could have done a Shakespearean monologue just about
Alas, poor oral herpes, I knew ye well.
Yeah. Eva wants to know, which kid does Mike relate to the most?
Honestly, it might have to be my own namesake. Because Mike was someone... well, not Michael. Red Mike. Because I think Mike is someone who is like a little emotional, a little impetuous, like especially when I was his age, right? Like I was definitely an oddball. I was definitely someone who spoke before I thought and often embarrassed myself as a result. And I was someone who also like wore my heart on my sleeve too. So like watching him like cry and try to play it off with a joke when he lost town council, like I would have had that exact same reaction. So it ends up being fate. Thank you, God/producers on Roof with Sheet Metal, that my namesake ends up being the most relatable to me on the show.
Okay. Phil, who most reminded you of yourself when you were watching this show? Did you have like an avatar in the season?
Yeah, so my track record kind of didn't go that well. Like in the first episode, I was like really in on Jimmy. Jimmy was my man, and then Jimmy left. And then I was all in on Cody, and Cody was my dude because he reminded me of me. And then he left. And so I would say, looking back, probably, someone like a Cody or someone like that, or maybe like an Anjay, but not as smart, but, someone who kind of like thinks they're really smart, even though they kind of just like talk nonsense and don't actually know how to like lead people or talk to people, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Rob?
I don't know if I really see myself in any of the children of Kid Nation. Do you have a suggestion, Mike?
I feel like
Eric.
I was actually thinking Eric. Like, I think you could do a wand off about a song about New Jersey. Yeah. You're someone who's not afraid to speak up, though.
He just came out of nowhere, though. I'd like to think that I would be like somewhat in the main cast.
Yeah, there's no real gamers on this cast. That's the thing. I'm trying to think of someone who's like really... Because I feel like if you went on, Rob, you'd really be wheeling and dealing, even if there was nothing to really wheel or deal.
I think you are, from an airtime perspective, I think you're the Alex. I think you're the guy that like is always around and like makes one-liners to the camera, but like doesn't need to get involved in any of the main drama. Or actually, you have a couple of close friends, but it's mostly like, all right, we'll cut to you with your singular tooth. And like making a one-liner about like, wow, this person's really out there.
Yeah, friends with Nathan.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Kid that nobody else likes. Yeah,
the Stephen Fishback of Kid Nation.
Connor wants to know: is the paint versus block party the most lopsided reward choice they've had yet? I mean, who in their right mind would pick the paint in this situation?
I don't know. I mean, I think it got outdone 2 episodes from now then with ponies versus letters from home.
Yeah, they're really stretching to try to like make it have something in common. Mike, I think, is right. He says 100% it was only a reward for paint the town, double meaning, and not for any actual value of a reward.
Yeah. Also, just thinking about like the ponies versus letters from home thing kind of had nothing to do with like the respect theme at all. Like they kind of just like ditch it by that episode. They're like, all right, whatever, we're giving you these things. Here you go.
Okay, Mel Hulst says, did you want Taylor to get her letter from home? I was hoping that we would get is everybody on the team okay if we decide to give Taylor her letter and then have someone do the iconic Shireen hand raise?
Well, I guess I wonder who would have done it, right? Like, I think maybe a few episodes ago it would have been Zach, but I feel like Zach is also in sort of like a lame duck period, so he doesn't really care at this point. I would have been surprised if anyone would have said no at that moment, considering that they were all emotional. I think they were kind in that moment, all of them, to be like, yeah, we'll just let her have it. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, Sheldon wants to say episode 9 is Laurel's Breaking Bad episode, and I freaking love it. Her S really hits the fan.
I didn't do it for the green team. I did it for me.
Would you say that? Do you see Walter White synergy with Laurel in episode 9? Does she break bad?
I mean, she has to do what she has to do for her family, I guess. There's that kind of correlation. And obviously there's the scene, where Walter White sings Amazing Grace beautifully and calls her mom from Boston. So there's also that
Walter,
kind of correlation.
Come here. You got 20 million. What?
Okay. Then a couple more questions. Chris Snyder says, when Greg is all like, you're not a man to Anjay, aren't they all technically not men because they're under 18?
Right, but as the oldest person, he is the arbiter of what masculinity is, right? So, like, he is the one who is the closest to puberty, so he can determine who else has gone through puberty and who has not.
Yeah. And Laureen just quotes, he sings in his sleep.
Honestly, can do without Emily. But why do we need Nathan? He sings in his sleep.
He's like in agony over the fact that he has to sleep with Nathan.
Well, imagine you were lying down to bed, and it's not like, whale noises or like serene sounds. It is someone belting Ethel Merman show tunes out while you're trying to get your 40 winks in. That's a problem.
I wonder if Nathan still does that.
He's still singing to sleep. Yeah, that's a good question to ask. Okay. Wow. Phil, can you believe it? Only one last chapter left in our rewatch of Kid Nation.
Yeah, I really can't. Like, we've gone through this pretty quickly, and, it's been a lot of fun, and I hope this grand finale will shock you. I hope so, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. I've really had so much fun this month. This has been a real highlight. To go back to Bonanza.
How is this episode like? Because I know, like, viewership wise, this is kind of where people drop off. Like, if you look at the
I was one of them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. Like,
why?
People are kind of.
You feel like it got boring?
People kind of got the gist of it, and like, I think probably for the same reasons why you fell off, Mike. It's like, all right, no one's really like getting voted out. It's like, why do I have to watch these screaming kids? Like, it's entertaining, but I guess people had other stuff to watch, so. And the controversy, I guess, but this is kind of where people dropped off.
But it is interesting, though. I do feel like I think that the thesis of your rewatch here is sort of like it plays surprisingly better now than maybe it did back in 2007. And I think part of that is like with the sort of this sort of influx of like Kardashian and Bravo Lab based entertainment. Like, I think people are now more accustomed and are more salivating on the idea of like, I just want to watch people argue with each other. Whereas I think back in those days, the real world was a thing, but I feel like that was not exactly the focus of competitive reality TV. In 2021, there's an entire genre about it. And so I think it is more palatable now to just be like, yeah, I'll watch 13 episodes of kids yell at each other in a Western town. Like, that sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I like also just the fact that, you do, of course, when we start the show, we have our central characters, but, over time, and I think even you would agree, Rob, like, we do learn more and more about these, like, this cast of characters, and we do start to become more accustomed to them, and we start to, like them more. So there is that kind of just character-based, element that brings us back that, like, I feel like other shows don't really have.
Just looking at the ratings for the season, it's not like that there is like a major dip. It does so happen that this episode we just talked about was the lowest rated episode of the season with 6.88 million viewers overall, which would be like huge ratings now. This was the lowest rated episode of the series, and then the last three episodes are 7.29, 7.2, 7.35. The highest rated episode was the premiere, which has 9 million viewers. And then for whatever reason, the second highest viewed episode was the sixth episode, Bonanza is Disgusting, with 8 million.
Well, you know what it was? Interestingly enough, so I mean, 6 was what? That was the first episode in the new administration, right? Like, that was after the election. So maybe people were excited of like, ooh, there's a new town council. Now I got to tune in. And maybe the reason why Let Me Talk is so low is because they saw who might be coming into the other town council, and they're like, oh, I don't want to watch Greg and Blaine in charge. No way, I'm boycotting this show.
Yeah, I also don't know do you know, Phil, was it on at 8 o'clock? Was there a lead-in for these shows?
I'm pretty sure it was 8 o'clock. I don't know if there was a lead-in. I think I'm pretty sure, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure like they started it at 8.
Okay, all right. So who's to say? Maybe we could do some more digging and find out exactly what went wrong here for the Kid Nation audience. All right. This was so much fun. Phil, anything else you want to say about Kid Nation today?
Nothing today besides just like watching Greg, rise to power kind of really shocked my core. And it's just because like, if, art mirrors reality, reality mirrors art, and just watching this kind of unfold was, kind of shocking, but that's why we love this show. And it's very beautiful. Yeah, that's kind of the only thing I would say.
Okay. All right. Phil, where can people keep up with you?
So you can follow me on twitter.com /listenupphilip, where I'm tweeting sometimes. And then you could also follow me on letterboxd.com /PNTJR, where I'm always just writing movie and TV show reviews.
I was going to say, you're writing them there?
And I just watched the new HBO miniseries. I don't know if either of you guys watched this. The Tiger Woods documentary.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was kind of just like disgusting to really just like dig into his life. It was kind of like,
why do you say disgusting?
Because like, the whole show is about how much, it's weird that we start to fall in love with these celebrities, but that's what the whole show is at the same time. We're just like learning about Tiger Woods' like, tabloid life and his nightclub life and his affairs and all this stuff. But it's pretty interesting. I really liked it. Yeah.
Is it just a thing now where every January we're going to have some sort of like mini series documentary about a famous athlete, right? We had Michael Jordan last January.
I think this is some documentary about something Tiger.
No, well, that's the next thing, right? I think the Tigger documentary is going to be January 2022, and you don't want to know about the stuff in his closet. There's a lot of skeletons there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Phil, I'm looking at top 10 movies from Phil for 2020.
Yeah, I just saw, I have no life, guys, in case
Mike,
you don't know.
I guess?
I just watch movies all day, so at the end of the year, I like to, make a list of the things I appreciated. And so this year also, there's no blockbusters, so it's probably a bunch of random movies that no one's seen, but I recommend people watch the list, or people watch movies on my top 10 list. You can find it on Twitter.
Mike, I've heard of exactly one movie in Phil's top 10 for 2020.
Is it Palm Springs?
No. I don't know. Palm Springs is not in there,
Palm
right?
Springs on there? Oh, I didn't know. I feel like that's one of those ones that sort of like fell through the cracks of like, hey, it happened to come out on Hulu. It's technically a movie, so it might make people's list.
The only one I've heard of, Soul. Number 8.
You like
it?
I didn't say I've seen it yet. I just heard of it. I don't even remember the only movies that are ever on in my house are Star Wars movies, episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We haven't gotten into that one yet. We keep going back to the beginning.
Well, you're on the platform, right? Just like make a couple misclicks, like, oh no, this Pixar movie came on. I think we should watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get them to switch over. Okay. All right. Phil, looking forward to the finale next week. Chappelle will join us for the home stretch, episodes 11, 12, 13 of Kid Nation. Mike, what do you have going on these days?
I am rewinding like a mofo in line with the RHAP Rewind going on right now. I'm talking about a lot of stuff from the past. So Rob mentioned that, speaking of the past, Rob and Grace and I got together to go through Survivor jury speeches. Highly recommend people check that out. It's a lost art form, and it was great to sort of relitigate a lot of fantastic and maybe not so great jury speeches from over the years on Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST. Of course, over on post-show recaps, we're going down the hatch with Josh Wigler. We're about to cannonball our way into season 4 of Lost, which I am very excited about, a personal favorite season of mine. And then I'm going on to a new project as well, talking about another past show. This one I have never seen before. I'm doing a podcast with my lovely wife, Angela Bloom, called The Bloom Files. We're talking X-Files.
Wow.
She loves the show, one of her favorite TV shows of all time. I have never seen an episode. And so we have sort of handpicked several episodes to get us through, a block of weeks, where every week we're going to watch 1 or 2 episodes of the X-Files, me for the first time, her for the umpteenth time, talk about our different reactions, opinions. Does it play well in 2021? We've already recorded a few episodes, and the intro podcast explaining the entire purpose of the project is dropping on Sunday on Poster Recap. So I hope people check that out, whether or not they are new to the show or not. And then I'm still staying in the past with reality TV as well, because Shannon, Gus, and I are going back to season 5 of Survivor South Africa Champions. We're actually going to be recording our episode 3 and 4 podcast tomorrow night. It is a weird ass season of Survivor, but there's a lot of discussion worthy and fun stuff going on to talk about. And Shannon and I always have a lot of fun talking about all the like weighty and light stuff that exists in International Survivor. So if you want to check that out, it's all available on YouTube, and you can join Shannon and I along for the ride.
All right.
And then, of course, speak about new stuff. Rob, you and I are going to be back in less than a month talking Tough as Nails.
Oh yeah, Tough as Nails is around the corner.
Yeah. So I think I actually might have an interview squared up with our man Phil Kogan coming up next week, previewing the cast of 12 people that I'm sure we're going to be talking about. But very excited about that. That was sort of like a critical darling, I think, of 2020 in reality television. And so I'm excited for it to come back and see what else, what other people we get to see. Who are the new Roofer Lees of the world?
Okay. All right. So a lot of stuff coming up from Mike Bloom. Of course, if you missed it this week, we've been continuing to count down all the way from 40 to 1, the best Survivor seasons of all time. This week, we talked about the 38th best season of all time, according to the fans of Rob as a Podcast. Talked about Survivor Thailand. Had a very fun panel the other night. David Bloomberg, Chappelle, Sasha Joseph joined us. We also, on the 90 Day Fiancé recap, Lauren Ashley Beck joined Puya and myself to talk about the week in 90 Day Fiancé. And then, of course, Outwit, Outplay, OutLIST is up. I'm going to be talking with Taryn Armstrong about The Hustler. Going to check out that brand new show. Taryn says that it is a very interesting social strategy experiment. So we'll take a look at that. And then we've got some Talking with T-Bird coming up this weekend, and then another edition of the Hot Takeoff coming up on RHAP. So jam-packed week here on Rob Has a Podcast. Of course, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with Chapter 5, the finale of our Kid Nation rewatch. And we'll figure out what we're rewatching in February on the RHAP Rewatch. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.